Welcome, folks, to Wednesday Night Modern here at the Nerd Rage Gaming Storefront. My name's Saviva Goodman, alongside Dominic Stryker. We got 4 rounds of Modern for you tonight. Welcome, welcome. How you doing tonight, Dom?
I am doing absolutely fantastic, and we are taking up the mantle of finding the most interesting decks we've got floating around out there today, and hopefully figuring out what cool decks that are floating around in the metas out here today. We have Archie on what they named Halo.
Halo, hopefully that's accurate. I don't know what it means.
I mean, we're starting out with an Insolent Neonate. I think I played against this deck a couple of weeks ago, and they're looking to do the like hollow one, like draw a bunch of cards, discard a bunch of cards, all at random scenario.
Oh, maybe that's what they meant. We thought it might have been like Halo Fountain, but a
Oh.
Copper Line Gorge isn't going to really help them cast
Oh,
that
you know
card.
what? I bet it's not Halo. I bet it's Hollow One.
Hollow one.
This
yeah,
might be a
maybe.
Hollow One.
And then
Eh,
I think you got Bryce. I think you got the wrong Alex as well. Alex is on a
Mono Brown,
brown.
as they said, and as we see him play Urza's Saga and a Manifold Key. So they're looking to put together a couple of artifacts, do some tapping, untapping. We might be looking at getting multiple ring triggers out of this deck, but also the things they can untap and the mana they can make and the combos they can create. We might be learning along the way.
I tried really hard to find non the One Ring deck. So we got one with Archie's deck. Hopefully, I don't know. We don't know their whole deck list. But Alex is running 3 copies of the One Ring, so we got half of a match for you without the ring.
Yeah, and we have a combo of a second Insolent Neonate, a Underworld Cookbook, and now we're getting a Blazing Root Walla into play.
Oh goodness, what's that card do?
So the Insolent Neonate, it looks like they activate the ability to sacrifice and discard a card, draw a card, and then the Root Walla has Madness for 0, so they must have discarded off one of those effects, put it into play as their little aggro threat, and now we can see that we're cycling Street Wraith, and now we've discarded a bunch of cards, so this Hollowed one costs 2 less for each card you've discarded for the turn, so this is a free 4/4.
I remember that it's from Hour of Devastation block.
Yeah, I
or
believe it's from the
block?
Omnicat block.
Yeah, right on.
And we have Alex with a, oh no, is this a Tendo Ice Bridge?
It is. I was looking at his deck list earlier.
Comes into play with an ice counter. It either taps for a colorless or you can remove the ice counter to create a mana of any color.
Yes, it's like
Aether Hub at home, we said here. And we're following up with, I believe, a core tapper. We're going to be doing this piece by piece with this beautiful mono brown deck.
All right, Core Tapper reads put a charge counter by charge counter on target artifacts. You can put it on any artifacts, and then you can sacrifice it to put 2 charge counters on target artifact. Does Tendo then have charge counters on it?
But it is not an artifact, and I believe it has, but it might also still have a charge to mess around with.
It does use
Charge
counter,
counter,
but it's not an artifact land.
And we have Archie here rumbling in for some damage. The core tapper not interested in blocking. Clearly here for nefarious combo purposes, not blocking duty. As we see Alex here going off on the 3rd mode of Urza Saga on the hunt for a 0 or 1 cost artifact.
Yeah, Mikey. Mono Brown isn't entirely accurate. He does have 4 copies of Ancient Strengths and 2 Bosejus. So there is a little green.
It's colorless in the way that Tron is colorless, right?
Exactly.
Just a little bit of splash into green to get some of that selection and dig. And I also believe there's a few Bosejus in their mana base as well.
Yeah, that's what he was talking about. I think Alex might have one in hand.
Yeah, just to take advantage of, honestly, a very powerful land in a color that you're already splashing, so you might as well. And here's the core tapper getting in for the tap ability.
So Alex like reading his own card there.
Right. So we just sacrificed it to add 2 more counters to our Everflowing Chalice. So now this taps
for 3.
Oh,
I see. Okay.
And then we can use this Manifold Key, which takes 1 mana to untap something. So we're going to spend the 1 on the key to untap the Everflowing Chalice, generating far more mana for ourselves. Alex is usually here playing Cabal Coffers, but I think they're just building their own here.
Yeah. The name of his deck that he called it 8 Key.
8 Key. Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this means we're looking at 8 Manifold Key or 4 Manifold Key and 3 Voltaic Key with a Karn the Great Creator package to get the 8th one out of the board. Here we're playing down this Mystic Forge, which is the value engine of these mono brown decks, allowing you to look at the top card and play it if it is colorless. Unless we're going to clear the top with this Ancient Stirrings.
So is there a combo win here, or I guess Walking Ballista for 1 million is the plan?
We can definitely make a lot. We have another mana engine in the card Astral Cornucopia, which is going to interact with a lot of these charge counters and building up to big mana turns. as we see another manifold key being cast, so Alex will be able to use this ever-flowing chalice to make even more mana on this turn. And we're going to try to churn through the top of our deck with this Mystic Forge. As we see, because it is colorless, this power conduit, we are now going to play this off the top using the ever-flowing chalice mana. And if you thought that wasn't enough, Mystic Forge can also tap and exile the top card from your library. So if Alex gets in a situation like right now where they don't like the top card, you can clear the top with Mystic Forge's own ability to keep digging through everything.
So I saw a deck like this when we were in St. Louis. Sam Black was playing in Legacy.
In Legacy.
I actually got to shadow our table spotter Corey for that exact match that he had on camera, and I saw him just like churning through his deck,
churn
doing a
is
lot,
the right word.
lot of stuff there.
This is the Rube Goldberg machine of Magic the Gathering decks, right? Combining all of these little fiddly pieces together to keep moving the machine forward, right? So we're tapping A to untap another, to then tap it to untap it, to tap it to untap it, to clear the top, to dig one card deeper. And Alex is trying to set up the machine to get it really rolling, while Archie's over here just attacking for 7 damage a turn and telling Alex that there's not much time, right? We spent a lot of time on Alex's turn there on playing these pieces and churning through it. But Archie still has this 4/4 and hollowed one, and then this root wall that can get pumped up, that there isn't much time for Alex to play around with these toys.
Yeah, you can take as many game actions as you want, but if you don't have blockers or if you don't have a way to prevent some of that damage, you're looking to be dead in just a couple turns here.
Right. All the space in front of Alex's land is filled with permanents, but none of those permanents are creatures, and they're definitely not blockers. So Archie has this chance to just get in here, activate the root wall, deal as much damage as they possibly can. Going down to 4. And 4 is not a lot when you're trying to assemble this machine. But these scenarios like this, where you just need to buy time, that's where the One Ring comes into play.
Yes, it has a very nice fog effect with that protection from everything, right? You can't take damage when you have protection from everything.
Right, so we're most likely using this Mystic Forge in combination with our 2 keys to make big mana to see if we can dig all the way to find an effect like that, so that we can fog through taking all this damage to, again, keep setting up this machine. I see a Karn the Great Creator in their hand, which, if we look in their sideboard, they do have a copy of the One Ring. So if we can use this Everflowing Chalice plus these 2 keys, generate a lot of mana, we have another Core Tapper, which we can sacrifice to put 2 more charge counters on this Chalice.
That Chalice game, beefy.
Yeah, I do think this Karn is going to be able to definitely search up that One Ring, but I wonder if we're going to go for something like Walking Ballista for its ping, 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 ping effect to maybe turn it into a board wipe. Or with all this mana, we might go for something like Paradox Engine to just keep going.
I now understand why Alex was a little mad at me for putting him on features. It's a lot of math to do under pressure.
And this might be their first time playing the deck in a while, too. Like I said, they've been here playing Coffers and Tron a lot lately.
Well, they're used to like the big mana generation. So hopefully that's, a skill set that they can lean on there.
Oh, and we have played the Karn and we're going to the board. Yeah, we're going big. We're going to start with Paradox Engine, this 5-mana artifact that says when you cast a spell, you can untap all of these other artifacts you have. I believe it may say non-land permanents. So the Paradox Engine plus this big Everflowing Chalice plus these 2 manifold keys is going to start netting a lot of mana. You can see here when you cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents.
This was part of the Sam Black sort of colorless combo that he had going on too. Every spell he was casting was basically letting him cast several more spells.
It honestly looks like a lot of the same pieces. As you can see here, they're getting this little Surge node into play. Funny enough, I know that there was a second player that might have also came with 8 key today who is trying to give me a quick primer on understanding all of this, but it is so much. As you can see Alex's mana on the top right there, just churning up. We're up to 12 plus 4, 16, adding another 6. Because remember, we get to use both of these keys to both untap the Everflowing Chalice. Then when we cast a single spell, we get to untap all of them and keep churning through.
Do we need to get this man some more dice out there?
I mean, it looks like they're already in their own personal collection with that Planeswalker D6 up there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I see him looking for more. I think
man.
there might be some on the floor next to him. We didn't set them all out. Oh, yeah, we got some little ones there.
Yeah,
there
personal dice have entered. There is just so much going on. Alex, you are making so much mana. Looking at our top card, it looks like it is another one of those
Core Tapper.
Core Tapper, which means all of this mana, once we create it, we'll have a spell to spend it on, and we get to untap these and go through this loop again.
Yeah, there's Cat. I was waiting for them to
Yep.
chime in.
There's
Cat was
Kat, who's trying to teach me how this strategy works, but unfortunately not feeling too well today. So what we're going to see is Alex can also use this Mystic Forge to clear the top, like we were saying before.
Mhm.
But when the Paradox engine goes off, the Mystic Forge will untap itself. So as long as they can dig far enough to find at least one spell they can cast, this can just keep going. The machine doesn't need to stop now.
I feel like I should mention here, Cat was the opponent of Sam Black on that feature match and managed to defeat
Oh my
Sam.
goodness, that's right. Yeah, back on that feature match in NRG St. Louis.
Cat, how'd you do it? What's the secret to beating this deck?
You kind of just wait and then you punch them in the face.
Yeah, you wait for them to run out of stuff to do.
Which is, I believe, exactly what Archie's plan right here is they're
Very-
waiting it out. I believe at this point, Alex is basically digging to find as much mana as possible,
Mhm.
then another copy of Karn the Great Creator
Mhm.
to find that walking ballista that we set up earlier. That they need to get to 14. So they need 7 mana floating after all is said and done, and currently have 20 mana floating. So as long as we don't spend 8 before we can generate more,
Mhm.
we're just on the hunt for that Karn. We can see the player even doing math off to the side.
Oh
Just
my goodness.
too much mana floating at this point.
You ever want to bring your math homework to the
Bring
game
your-
store with you?
Yeah. If your parents ever say there's not enough math and magic, you can show them this game so you can play Magic at the NRG store.
There you go. Oh, there's a land on top there.
That's all right. We could figure this out. Because also the 2 manifold keys can untap any artifact, so we can use them to untap the forge to keep clearing away that top card. So we need the top 4 cards to be uncastable off this Mystic Forge. So we're going to most likely clear that first one away. I see them moving the forge. There we go. Oh, I believe you may... Yep, we see the one going away. Now we're looking at the top card. Alex goes to the thinking phase.
Is that perhaps a... I'm trying to look at the card arts here. I think it might have been a power conduit. I don't know. There's lots of...
I see them floating all of their mana, so there must be something to do with it. Oh.
What you got there, Alex?
We might have to give Alex an actual calculator out there they can put on stream.
Oh, yeah, Dakota, do you have that big one, the chunky one that you have at the series? Yeah.
Perfect. We might make a little delivery between the matches
No,
here
no, go down, go
to
down.
get
go,
all this
go.
floating mana out there for y'all.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I know that we had promised no ring. There's no rings here, but this is ring-inspired mono brown 8 key. Oh my goodness, Alex. We're running out of space on our board. We're going to have to start using our opponent's board at this point. You can see Dakota out there offering the calculator.
It's like a good visual.
Right. You know, like any good stream, we're going to try to hook them up with anything they need to go through these large combo lines. Archie really doing a great job of sitting and watching.
What a champ, you know. Came here to play some Magic, instead gets to watch someone else play some Magic. Alex is down to 1 here, so...
Right, and because each time we use this forge, I believe you have to lose a life to do so.
You do.
So, you know, we're getting dangerously close to Archie just being able to kill Alex if they can't figure it out pretty soon here. And remember, we are taking all this time on going through Alex's turn, but not only is Alex learning the deck, but their opponent is also learning as well what's going on, which lets you think about what are good sideboard cards and also how to attack the matchup. Archie's deck can kill very quickly, so even though this
It almost
game
did.
Right. So we're deep into this game 1 of just Alex going through the machine, but Archie doesn't need that much time in games 2 and 3 if it comes down to losing this one and needing to get the others. They have a fast, aggressive plan.
I'm sorry he didn't want the calculator, Dakota. He's
Hey.
used to paper and pen.
We tried our best out there doing the old classic method. You can see the paper and pen there in the top right corner, just ticking away. And we even supplied them with even more dice. We'll try to get as clear as possible out there for everyone's visuals.
Interestingly, this Boseiju is relevant against the hollow one.
Yeah.
If, you know, Alex, I mean, that only deals with one of the creatures, right?
I believe Alex has just realized they're dead.
Yep.
They spent all this time going through the loop, but could not find that final piece, that final moment, take themselves down to 1, just could not quite find it. As you said, the Boseiju could answer the hollow one, but the little lizard would still get to sneak through and do those final points of damage.
So we're about 15 minutes into the match here. I think Archie, we only took like 3 turns apiece there for the players. Alex just took the majority of the game actions there. But let's take a look at this deck list that Alex provided for us.
There is the 8 key. So you can see all those pieces. If you look in the upper middle there, you can see those manifold keys. Looking in the bottom left, you'll see those voltaic keys. And then we have this big old Karn board of Walking Ballista, Haywire Mite, Chalice of the Void, Tormod's Crypt, 2 Welding Jars, Pithing Needle, a voltaic key. There's the 8th key hiding out. Liquid Metal Coating, Stone Brain, and Snaring Bridge, One Ring, and Paradox Engine. All Karn board targets. The 2 that we're looking at are the 2 Dismembers and possibly the Haywire Mite. They did see their opponent trying to beat them down with a 4/4. The biggest thing that their opponent's going to be offering up is that hollow one. So if they think they're actually scared of those and they're not maybe as reliant on getting their one rings into play or searching up their ensnaring bridge, and they want to be careful and just make sure they have the most interaction possible, we might look at these 2 Dismembers. Even the Haywire Might can answer the Underworld Cookbook that they saw, and possibly assuming that there's more going on, possibly an Urza Saga package as well. But also we can just leave it in there so that if we need it, we can find it with Karn.
Awesome there. I think that sounds like a pretty good game plan to me. Those dismembers seem very useful.
Yeah, and it's always easy with these Karn sideboards. You're just figuring out which ones are the actual sideboard cards and if they have any interest in bringing them in.
Exactly. Do we have an example list? Yes, we do. We have one off Goldfish here for a sort of example deck list that Archie is running. A hollow one deck list here. It is a recent deck list because I see some Orcish Bowmasters in there. But it looked like he was playing a sort of Gruul version. So
Yep, but what's really important to see here is if you look in the dead middle of the screen, you'll see a card like Burning Inquiry that makes both players draw 3 cards and discard 3 of them at random. There's also cards like in the bottom left corner, Goblin Lore, which you draw 4 and discard 3 at random. So what they're trying to do is churn through their own deck with all these discard effects to make hollowed ones as cheap as possible, and then supplement it, as we saw with our player who are watching today. They've supplemented it with the Asmo food package, because it's a very tight engine, and Asmo themselves looks for that discard engine. And Burning Inquiry can be very difficult if you are their opponent, because you're both drawing 3 and discarding at random. So I played against this person a few weeks ago while playing Tron, and I'll promise you that if your opponent makes you discard 3 at random, it's really hard to assemble your strategies. And we have that going on with Alex's deck. He's trying to put A plus B plus C plus D plus E, like trying to put all of these pieces to exactly fall together. So these effects like Burning Inquiry and any other stuff that's going after the hand might really hurt them trying to piece that all together.
absolutely, yeah. Alex is a much more fragile sort of game plan, I would say. It's very precarious in how he has to assemble it.
It's like the House of Cards, right?
Absolutely.
They're building it up, and every little piece is important. And if Archie's deck, like we said, it looks like it's a Gruul version. If they have Besaju's, Force of Vigors, any of those naturalized style effects, they might be able to just take out the one piece that's really important, and Alex's whole House of Cards will crumble, as we see them starting with Ancient Stirrings.
Looks like Alex up to full 7 there. I can't quite see how many Archie had. But hopefully a full grip, so we got a lot of good cards to play here. And there goes... Is that Mystic Forge?
That is the Mystic Forge. So this is the engine they used last game to churn through the top of their deck and then clear it off and cast those. So we won't be able to play it just now as it costs 4, but it's a really important piece, one for Archie to know about, but also Alex to know that they can start generating all this mana. They'll have a payoff for it to start churning through their library. As we see Archie tutoring up a Steam Vent. So we said we think they might be on Gruul. We at least see possibly a 3rd color as well interacting here in their Hollow One strategy.
Oh, goodness. Pop quiz, what's that shard?
What shard?
Or, I don't know. What's...
Teamer?
There we go.
Talking about
Thank
green,
you.
red, and blue?
Thank you.
Yeah, from Kanzatark here. Led by Surok Dragonclaw. Before the time shift, and then it was Yasova Dragonclaw, right?
I don't know. I didn't play during Cons.
Cons is one of the coolest, and Kanzatark here is some people's favorite draft formats.
Yeah, our producer Bryce is singing the praises of Khan's draft block.
See, and here's what's really interesting about this matchup. We see Alex using their turn 2 to set up this Everflowing Chalice, while Archie has this Flame Blade Adept, this huge aggressive threat out of their deck that not only has menace, but pumps itself up with every discard. That when I played against Archie a few weeks ago, he said that this is one of his favorite cards in the deck because it hits so hard, so fast, so early. As we see, I believe this is that Surge node that we spoke of before here in the middle of Alex's battlefield.
Lots of card arts to try and remember here. We do have a larger preview screen in the back here, so we can get a closer look at these cards here.
Fun fact, this is also a Flame Blade Adept, but a different art version of Flame
Oh,
Blade
great.
Adept.
Love that.
And now Archie's hitting us with the Burning Inquiry. Each player draws 3 and then discards 3. Not only is Archie's creatures going to beef up, but Alex is forced to discard 3. And if Archie lucks out, they could discard a couple and keep a hollowed one and play one for free this turn as well. We're going to see what everyone's preferred discard strategy is. My favorite is just grab them. Like, just this one, this one, this one, which is what we can see the player is using here. It's all random. Some people roll dice. Some people want to pick and choose.
Oh, I think they hit the Mystic Forge and the One Ring.
Oh.
And maybe a land as well. That seems very devastating for Alex.
And Archie discards a land, hollowed one, and cookbook. So they kind of lost their engine as well. But they do have this 4-power creature to attack on this turn.
And they're going to sway in here and start the beatdown plan.
Yeah, these Flameblade Adepts, if Archie can keep a hollowed one in hand as well. If Archie continues to follow up this plan with discarding from Street Raids, Burning Inquiries, or Goblin Lords, these Flameblade Adepts will do a lot of damage really quickly. You can see Alex untapping with this Urza Saga. Like I was saying before, this game looks very different because Alex does need a lot of time. And Archie almost had them in that first game, and then Alex didn't find anything, and Archie got to take that game. And we see that happening again here, applying such fast aggression while Alex is just trying to build the machine.
He's like, hold on, let me get there. I got this.
Right.
Don't kill me this fast.
Right. At competitive Modern, you can't ask your opponent to slow down and hold up a little bit. Your opponent here is to put their foot fully on the gas. They are not going to break for you. As we can see, a manifold key, the first of our keys, and key number 2, another manifold key. Oh, yeah. And we have an Everflowing Chalice on 2. So each time we loop through this, we can float a mana. So we can turn this Chalice into 3 floating mana this turn.
Yeah.
I believe it might be 4 overall. Another Chalice for 2.
Dakota mentioned in Alex's first game when he went out there to check their mana, they were over 100 colorless mana floating.
Can you imagine you float over 100 colorless mana and then concede the game?
Yeah, right.
And that is just what's going to happen when you have to register a deck like this. They had the whole engine going, but not quite the final payoff, and had to use their first card to really set up the engine, and then just ran out of life points because Archie is pressuring them so heavily.
Right, and here he goes again, swinging out.
These Flame Blades aren't bumped up this turn, but Hollowed One is a 4/4 plus these 2 1-powered creatures. Another Flame Blade Adept. We are up to 7 damage on board. And if Archie can find a single discard effect, then that'll be 10 plus damage on board for Archie.
Oh my goodness, could you imagine a Burning Inquiry here?
Yeah, these each get +3.
It would be a little overkill, but
4, 8, 12, 16 damage. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if that's the version, or they could have those Street Rates in hand that they had in the first game, Archie has a lot of outs in discarding this and getting the final pieces through. And Alex, unfortunately, just has a lot of spells right now that aren't quite doing a lot.
He's got a lot of pieces on the field. Just so many dice. Oh my goodness. Even the lands have dice on them with the Urza Saga and the Blast Zone.
Yeah. If you're not a big fan of dice, then this may not be the deck for you because there's a lot of dice, a lot of math, and a lot of tracking.
Definitely not my style of deck. Although I do play a deck with a lot of life gain, so that's its own kind of math there.
I just know I'd mess it up somewhere in the middle, right? I'd go through 10 minutes of my opponent's time and then end up in the situation. It's like, oh, actually, I don't have enough, and then have to shame scoop it up. But Alex is very used to doing this big mana math, so they are well equipped to do this. The question is the deck giving them what they need to fully take it over?
His Blast Zone is sitting on the field too. I wonder if Alex, just are the Flame Blades?
The Flame Blades
They're
are
all
ones, but so are Alex's Manifold keys. So if we blow up that Blast Zone, our large portion of our mana engine will disappear as well.
It does put us to a 3-turn clock, though, with just the Hollow One on the field.
Yeah, the Hollow One's ready to attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can see Alex is trying, doing math, fiddling, using their key, using their Surge Node. Yeah, you can see the 1,000-yard stare of trying to figure out, think through the math. They are very, very close to no longer in this game. They're trying to figure out how to scramble through the puzzle that is the dice factory that they have in play, just all of these little pieces.
I remember Archie's Burning Inquiry got rid of that One Ring, which could have saved or, protected Alex for a turn.
Could have given Alex a turn in a moment, but instead the Burning Inquiry took it away from them, which is just a part of the power of it, right? You can imagine, let's say you keep your 7-card hand, and Archie's first action of the game is Burning Inquiry, discard 3 of those at random. It could ruin your entire game plan, your entire day. And here we see an Ancient Grudge
Oh.
targeting what I must believe is one of these large Everflowing Chalices, hopefully trying to break up Alex's mana engine.
And he can flash it back too, so you can actually take out 2 targets with this one card.
Right, we can use it at instant speed here to do the first part, flash it back on our own turn, and really just destroy Alex's mana engine.
There it is there.
I love the Innistrad art that Archie's using that has a werewolf just taking a big swipe through the symbol of Avacyn. That's really how it feels to take those actions in the game. And here we see Alex using their mana, looks like to blow up that Blast Zone, take all the ones away, including their own keys. But they use that last-ditch mana to do so. And we see Archie following it up with, is this the fourth
one?
Flame-Bladed Death?
They had it in hand.
If we see the hollow one coming in, but we're tapping our mana, making a guy with our Urza Saga. Currently a 2-power blocker, but we're going to flash back the Grudge to kill the blocker before damage. Beautifully played by Archie.
I assume before blockers there, so that they,
Absolutely, yeah. We see Alex
advantage.
taking that damage down to 6. Now, Archie just threatening. And does Alex have any cards in hand?
It doesn't appear, so I don't see any in the face cam there. Yeah, just drawn that 1 for turn.
Oh, and our Urza Saga is doing its final chapter, so we get to search up a 1-mana artifact. But the important part is the Flame-Bladed Adept does have Menace, so Alex needs to generate 2 blockers in case that boy gets real big.
Well, the hollow one I think is probably the preferred block anyway.
Yeah, because the hollow one is currently a 4/4. But if something happens and we do a Burning Inquiry or 2, Archie might make this Flame Blade real big, real fast.
Yes, Archie's got 5 damage on board right now, so any sort of discard spell will put him up to lethal on attacks here.
Right, and we already saw Ancient Grudge. They might have even more artifact hates waiting in their deck that may be able to clear this blocker away as well.
Oh, excuse me, right. Without the blocker, it would be lethal.
We are very, very close. Alex trying to figure out each little bit they can. Played a couple artifacts here, got this Voltaic Key. We have our blocker up to a 4/4. Able to trade with this hollow one. We have to be real careful of this Flame-Bladed Adept.
Archie, I think, has 1, potentially 2 cards in their hand. Yeah, drew for turn, so 2 cards in hand. Is just going to swing with the Menace here so that Alex can't block.
Right. We've both of our players are basically playing off the top. Archie with the 1 or 2 cards in hand. Alex with a card drop return. But I don't think Ancient Stirring is a very good start for Alex. I was about to say their deck is not set up very well to be on low resources, whereas Archie is kind of where they want to be.
Yeah.
So
they play a lot of discard spells, so they're used to top decking a lot, I would think.
Yeah, I feel like they most likely spend a lot of games with few cards in hand and aggressive threats in play, whereas Alex is hoping for the opposite, with a bunch of fiddly pieces in play and a hand to play with. So this Stirring will be very important for Alex. I imagine you want to be on the hunt for something like the One Ring.
There's a Karn, which does technically count as a 1 ring if you've got the... Or no, you don't. You just need the mana for Karn.
But it looks like we have 2 from the Everflowing Chalice.
Or no, you need to still cast it.
Yeah, we have to do 1 out of the key to make 3. So we have exactly 4 mana right now to play out this Karn. So unless they have some free way in their sideboard to interact with these creatures, I think Alex is just going to check for themselves to see if they can find anything. Currently 0 mana to work with.
You've got a Haywire Mite that can block and give you some life on the die trigger.
Oh, Alex is searching up their copy of the One Ring. Wonder if this is just a fear tactic. Because we know that Alex has their blocker. So as long as they're able, they'll block this hollowed one, take a few off the Flame-Bladed Adept. Next turn, they have the 4 mana they use for the Karn that they can use for the One Ring. So Alex has bought themselves 2 turns as long as Archie can't get rid of this blocker. Oh, wait. Archie's doing literally scratching their chin thinking this one over. And
it's just going to swing in with the Menace. Oh, it's going to fully swing out here.
Yeah, I wonder if this hollow one might be going after the Karn proper.
I think I saw a motion towards it, yeah.
Oh, it looks like the Flame-Bladed Adept using its Menace went after the Karn, which is an interesting choice because that means in order for Alex to use their Karn next turn, they have to lose their Karn. It has a -2 to search that sideboard.
Right.
We might be seeing Karn do a +1 to animate possibly the Ring to make a 4/4 blocker, or maybe one of these keys just to make a little one mana block, one power blocker.
Well, when the ring comes down, it gives you protection from everything, so you do have
Yes.
a full turn of protection.
What's really important is you have protection, but your planeswalkers and creatures do not. So that's a
Right.
good chance for Archie to spend his turn attacking the Karn, because you
Mhm.
can't take damage anyways. So that might be a part of the incentive to use one of these as a blocker, but looks like we have bigger plans for our Karn the Great Creator.
It does not look like Archie's running black in this deck list. The one we pulled from Goldfish is a red black list, and it looks like Archie's running sort of a teamer, a
Yeah.
red green blue sort of a list here.
Yeah, Archie seems to have a teamer version that has the Asmo package in it with Hollow One, the Burning Inquiries, and so forth effects. Whereas the one that we showed before was a stock red black with some really interesting tech in it that we may let Archie check out later, see if that's something they want to move towards. But that did not have the Asmo package. So this might be a more comfortable place for Archie and their playstyle. And these green sideboard cards are definitely coming into play as well.
A little bit easier on the wallet as well without those Bowmasters.
Hey, some people might already have them.
Yeah.
Or they might be able to pick them up at nerdgaming.com.
Absolutely. I lost a foil one in a pack war at St. Louis.
Oh no, is that yours?
Yeah, it was. You can check Dakota's Twitter out for that. It was
Yeah,
quite the pack war there.
There's some wild pack wars out there from what I saw.
Pack warring Lord of the Rings collector boosters is sure to give you a good time.
And looks like Archie here cycled a hollowed one to get this Asmarina. And then we have this Underworld cookbook that we found off it that we are most likely putting into our hand and then into play. All right, and passing the turn back. Again, Alex had protection from the ring, so no point in attacking, no planeswalkers to battle down this turn.
Exactly.
But now Alex is in crunch. No longer has that protection. No longer has that Karn. Does have this, though. Has their power conduit. I mean, they do have 2 keys already in place. So this conduit's going to help them ratchet up those number of charge counters on the Everflowing Chalice.
And there's a Mystic Forge in hand.
And we're going digging with the ring. Interesting enough, right? You can see that Alex did. Oh,
you can take the counters off the ring. Oh my goodness.
This is wonderful with this power conduit. For those unaware, the power conduit can remove a counter of any kind and then add a charge counter or something. So Alex can be able to use this engine of generating cards off the ring but never taking the damage.
Oh, that's good. I like that a lot.
And now our Chalice is making big mana with both our Voltaic keys. We now have a Mystic Forge, floating mana. Alex is clawing back in what I thought might have been their final turn. And Voltaic key can untap any artifact, so if Alex is feeling a little saucy,
yeah.
you could untap that ring to get even deeper, but it in tandem with this Mystic Forge, we are going to dig very deep.
Start off with a Cornucopia here, which will give him some mana.
Yeah, the Astral Cornucopia currently with 0 charge counters, but this deck has a way to manipulate and move them around.
So many charge counter synergies here.
Yeah, Magic specifically using charge counters for all of these allows all these synergies to come together. Oh, Alex tapping there with Flowing Chalice, a big mana, playing another copy of the Conduit. Churning through that top of their library, but unlike the first time in game 1, we don't have the Paradox engine to really like untap and cycle through everything. We're having to do it the hard way right now.
Yeah, and Archie again leaving Alex with very little life to use towards that Mystic Forge.
Thankfully, Archie does get to spend a lot of this game winning, quote unquote, right? Your opponent is spending a lot of time taking a lot of actions, and here we see them scooping it up, right? Archie just presenting such a large threat and a large board that Alex just did not have time to build the machine.
Yeah, he gave it his best there, took a lot of actions. We got a couple of Archie fans in the chat, I've noticed.
Yeah, shout out to the Archie fans in chat. Thank you so much. We'll let them know.
Yeah, welcome in. I think we're going to head into our backup match here.
It's all right. Well, we're going to take just a moment to check out that one. If anyone is interested, though, in this 8-key deck, we can definitely try our best to get it out there to folks as well. Just an unbelievable machine that Alex is trying to put together piece by piece by piece. But remember, you got to be careful with decks like this because aggressive decks are out there. Decks like this Hollowed One, decks like Burn, decks like Scam, do not plan on giving you a lot of time. So be careful out there if you have these decks that need time. Or if you play against a lot of decks that need time, aggressive decks are out there.
All right, we're gonna head into our backup match here. Brian, of course. I forgot. Did he win? He did win.
Yeah, Brian Tepper 4-0 last week on this blue-white ring control deck. We put this in the backup feature because I think this just is a snapshot of what the format of Modern looks like right now.
Absolutely.
This 4-color Omnath deck with these Delighted Halflings are going to be a big, big trouble for Brian because these Halflings give cards like Omnath and the One Ring uncounterability. And Brian, being a control deck, is built around trying to interact and counter a lot of your threats. So you can see here in this early game, this 4-color deck definitely going to be trying to threaten Brian with big threats. And we see them spending a Solitude on a Delighted Halfling, pitching a Supreme Verdict.
Really respecting that card there, Delighted Halfling.
Right, spending 2 really important, really powerful cards in the matchup to get Halfling off the board, because getting a Halfling off the board unlocks all the counter magic in your hand. That's really important for Brian's strategy.
Exactly. Delighted Halfling, just one of the new cards to 4-color Omnath, which has been a very relevant, meta powerful deck in the format for a while. I like to call it Money Pile, just because.
Oh yeah.
I'm a little broke girl, and I can't afford to play with all the fun cards.
And one of the parts that's really important in the Modern format right now is a lot of people are just trying to figure out what deck can play the most busted Lord of the Rings cards.
Exactly.
So when you look at Brian's deck, they have gotten to play the Ring, which has unlocked a lot of powerful cards in the Modern format. David's deck gets to play Delighted Halfling and the Ring, unlocking even more power in the older cards that they have available.
Neither of them playing Orcish Bowmasters, though, which it has seen a lot of play recently
Right.
in both Legacy and Modern.
I think that's a part of the uptick in Yawgmoth right now, is Yawgmoth is the only deck that gets to play 3 of the busted cards in the format. Playing the Ring, playing Halflings, and playing Bowmasters.
Or Samwise Gamgee, as we
or
saw
Sam,
at the
you play
NRG.
even more incredible cards. And importantly, out of Brian, as we see him resolving a 1 ring here, is we saw a few times last week, they drew through literally their entire deck, right down to the final card, and they were really worried about finding a way to cycle back through their deck because of how long these games go. So shout out to NRG friend of the family, George Jabor. Brian Tepper has put a Days Undoing in his deck just so that he can shuffle it all back in to keep going through the loops.
I love it.
Brian was scared of drawing all of his cards again today, so he put in 1 card to make sure that he could shuffle them all back in. As we see one of the best cards at answering the 1 ring, Leyline Binding here, taking it away. Most likely the best answer after cards like Prismatic Ending and Haywire Might that truly exile it. At least Leyline Binding can lock it away to make it later's problem.
It does have that pesky word at the top of its text box, indestructible, so there's a lot of effects that do not take care of it.
Right, it's very important to find those exiling effects, as we see David here doing the classic Omnath of Omnath on turn 5, play your land, trigger Omnath. Unfortunately, in this case, it is a Odawara and not a fetch land to go full Omnath. But 1 trigger will still be good enough right now against our control opponent.
I'm so jealous of David's land base here. He's got full art, Infinity Shocks. He's got the showcase Triomes, the borderless Odawara. Just beautiful cards here.
The showcase Omnath, the bundle ring. If there's one thing I know about Modern players and 4-color players even more, they love to buy the pretty versions. But my 4-color deck looks pretty similar to this. Just especially with the Triomes and the accessibility of just beautiful versions and some people's aversion to foils right now, this is one of the best ways to make your deck just as pretty as possible.
He's even got a secret lair basic island over there too.
And I may be incorrect, but I believe that's a Fortnite island. So not only are we playing a full art secret lair island, but it's from what many people's favorite secret lair.
Oh yeah, we got all sorts of crossover products here in our Modern game here. We got Lord of the Rings, we got Fortnite, we got some unsets for you. All sorts of fun shenanigans going on.
And sometimes there's just solitude.
Yeah.
Just our one word, the embodiment of a feeling here out of the MH2 cards. Being
The feeling that a lot of control players get, solitude, because
I don't know. I think blue-eye players spend a lot of time playing the games of Magic. They probably interact with Magic players the most. They play the longest games.
I guess that's fair. Yeah.
Oh, and we can see Brian fanning his hand out with the Days Undoing sitting in the middle. So this game could go on for a while, and Brian is set up to make it go even longer.
A Renin 6 hits the field for David there.
It tried to into this Force of Negation.
Get out of here.
This blue-white ring deck is so powerful, and I think it's one of the best decks in utilizing the ring because between Force of Negation, Subtlety, Solitude, they can draw so many free spells that allow them to tap out early, which is a thing a control deck couldn't normally do.
Yeah, and then of course you have this Teferi, which the blue-white players love to use their life total as a resource, and the ring lets them do that. But then Teferi makes it not even super scary because you can bounce it back to your hand and reset that counter.
Right, and then you have the epitome of the voiceover is on Arena of Teferi saying, "Let's slow things down." Teferi Time Raveler always just slows it down, which really helps their strategy of making their opponents have to be on sorcery speed at a very interactable level. And very interesting, being one of Blue White Control's best weapons, it's also the best thing against them. And here we have Narset, one of
Oh
their best
boy.
weapons, and the Day's Undoing.
He did it! He did the thing! Check, clip it!
So for those who aren't aware, Narset Part of Avail says that your opponents can only draw one card per turn. The Day's Undoing makes both players shuffle in and draw 7, but David only gets to draw 1, while Brian gets to draw the full 7 and then end the turn. So David now has a full grip of 7 brand new cards, while David has 1 plus the card they drew for turn. But they do have a ring going, so they're at least able to draw up, but they can't because there's the Narset in play still.
Oh gosh.
Narset, an incredible answer and key against the One Ring, not only allowing these Days Undoing strategies, but the ring can only ever draw the 1 card.
And we see 3 rings on the field. Technically only 1 because 2 are under leyline bindings
Yes.
here.
There are a lot of games of Magic played lately where you will see a leyline binding with a 1 ring or a leyline binding under it. And 1 ring's either in play or under the bindings.
Yeah, we got a pile of rings here. And they're all the bundles, too.
Oh, yes.
Very fun.
I recently played a game over a weekend against a friend of the stream, Justin Brickman, in our 4-color mirror. In the middle of the board was just 4 bindings with 4 rings under it.
Oh,
So many people walking by going, wow, this has been a long game, huh?
And David is above 20 life because of that Solitude from earlier as well, I believe.
Yeah, the Solitude effects alongside 1 or 2 Omnath triggers, their life total is very
there
healthy.
You go.
I am heavily recommending right now to anybody playing the One Ring that I recommend you have an Omnath, a Shieldred, or a Wormcoil engine in your deck because you need something to keep you safe while the ring is doing its business. And I was having this conversation with Brian because the only tool they have for gaining life are those Solitudes. And sometimes they don't even connect for damage. They have to be very, very careful with their own life total.
I thought they were using a Wormcoil. Did they have one last week?
There's the Wormcoils in the blue Tron deck, but unfortunately not in the blue-white ring deck.
It was the other. It was Kai's deck.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Tron allows you to have a Wormcoil to keep you safe. This 4-color Omnath deck has the namesake card Omnath to keep your life total high. And a lot of decks are trying to figure out how to put Shieldred in the One Ring together.
Which Omnath is it? Pop quiz.
Omnath, Locus of Creation.
Yeah.
The 4-color Omnath.
Correct. Gold star.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Good job.
The commander player Gold Star. Yeah, and so very importantly, there's a lot of cards that help supplement the ring that are good with and against the ring. These cards like Narset and Shieldred that are really popping up in popularity to figure out how to best navigate this new metagame of Lord of the Rings Modern we're playing in.
Well, some people have called the Lord of the Rings set Modern Horizons 3.
Technically, it is, right? It has taken that slot in the release schedule, and it is a pipeline directly into Modern. So even though it's got a fancy name, it's definitely had the Horizon effect. At least 10+ cards out of this set having a big impact. 4 of the Land Cyclers, Bowmasters, the One Ring, the Delight Halfling. Like, you'd be on Sauron's Ransom making plays both in Modern and Legacy.
Yeah. That one's a little bit of a sleeper at first.
Popularized basically on the stream by Jarvis Yu and their Grixis Delver deck in Legacy, but picking up steam lately in a Dimir deck in Modern as well, as we see these players just firing interaction back and forth at each other. Prismatic endings and counterspells, just trying their best to navigate what's currently in play.
Oh, Brian did. I don't think he did it, but he asked me earlier if when he casts the One Ring on stream, if he has to show his tattoo. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he pulled up his sleeve and showed me.
He has like a beautiful elven tattoo, right?
Yeah, which he got like a long time ago. Like not related at all to the release
Brian
of
said
the
he got it right before the Lord of the Rings set came out, so that when people asked about it, they'd say, oh, is that because of the set? He wanted to be like, no, I got it before the set came out. I'm just a Lord of the Rings fan, as we see this scoop happening here in the game. We're going to jump quickly into game number 2.
We do have one match out here, so hopefully we'll be able to see the full extent of this match. We do have it sped up a little bit. Oh boy, Bryce was watching it live. He says it's a good one for us.
We've been notified that specifically this game is hilarious. So hopefully we'll see as much of this match as we possibly can to see what it is going to happen. As I see, looks like David is mulliganing down to 4.
Oh goodness. All
Uh,
right, we're starting off strong here.
Breeding Pool Delight Halfling is a good start on your 4.
Indeed it is. Oh,
Yeah.
but get out of here.
Very, very smart strategy here, right? When you see an opponent mulliganing down and then you have a way to take resources away, like killing a mana dork or thought seizing them, those effects become so important when your opponent has so little to do and so few cards to work with.
The classic bolt the bird.
Right. Yeah, Brian immediately firing that off. Bolting the bird when they have 7 cards, good. Bolting the bird when they have 2 cards left in hand, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Because not only were they counting on that mana, but that uncounterability. So your levels of interaction go up greatly in this matchup.
David hitting all of his land drops here, though. Powering out a bunch of mana there. He's got Leyline Binding, Domain sort of set up there as well.
And it's a part of the new mulligan, right? Instead of looking at the number of cards you're on mulligan, you need to look at the 7 and then choose the ones you want. Allow for actual functional hands on small number mulligans. You know, David's hitting all their lands. I would assume they most likely kept a lot of lands and a halfling and maybe one payoff, like this One Ring. And now we see Brian thinking, of course you fire this counterspell off.
Absolutely.
There's another counterspell in their hand, so they might have been Hollywooding a little on maybe if they want to use this, because they've got a bunch of them.
Oh, goodness. I see 2 force negations at the very least.
Yeah, with 2 forces, a counterspell, our own copy of the One Ring, Brian is set up. And that's it.
Yep.
That's all they wrote with this One Ring entering play, with Brian having counterspells and free counter magic in hand. David understanding that nothing's going to happen, nothing's going to resolve for the rest of this game.
Yeah, blue-white control, you know, the card advantage is already so overwhelming, and when you mulligan down to 4, you're at such a disadvantage.
Yeah, blue-white control for a long time did not have access to card advantage and had to really beg, borrow, and steal to get all these high levels of interaction, but the One Ring really shores it up, finally is given a card advantage engine to the blue-white control decks, and we can see Brian using it to great effect here, 2-0.
All right, so he's 5-0 in his last matches, but we're going to take a quick look at our weekly schedule. If you're looking to come out to the store, we have a slew of different events that you can try out. Tonight, of course, is Modern. Tomorrow we'll have Commander and Pokemon. We will be streaming Pokemon tomorrow if you're looking to get to know a little bit about that game. I kind of want to build a Tinkaton deck. Do you know this Pokemon, Dom?
The one that has the big giant weapon and likes to beat up Corvus Squires?
Yeah, I heard you can deal damage equal to the number of cards in your hand, and that sounds like a deck for me.
Ooh, and I know the one thing about the Pokemon format is that Wheel of Fortune, like the just draw 7 cards, is a common in the Pokemon game.
Oh, hell yeah. Sounds good to me. So if you like the sound of that, check out our stream tomorrow. Come on down to the store and play. On Friday, we have Legacy. We got lots of good turnout for that. Lots of great decks to try and play against. And One Piece as well, the hottest new game out from Bandai. Speaking of Bandai, we also featured Digimon. We got a lot of good Digimon players. We have 2 leagues now, both Saturday and Monday are both leagues. Up the entry point there, and we collect a pot and dole it out to the top 5. At the start of the new set release, BT13 just came out, so we are at the beginning of our league, so come on down for that. Start earning points towards the pot there. And then Monday is also our second Commander night. I should mention open play, free to play. Come on in, play with people. People always have decks to loan out. You can play from Precon up to CEDH. We give out promo packs, tons of fun. We got a Commander Appreciation Party in the works for Commander Masters. We'll be catering that. Lots of good giveaways and raffles. So keep an eye out on our socials for that announcement. And then, of course, Tuesday wraps us up with Pioneer and One Piece. That being said, we will be right back with our round 2 features. Thanks so much for watching.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. We're in round 2 of 4 here, Wednesday Night Modern at the Nerd Rage Gaming storefront. I am still Haviva. He's still Dom. And we got Kai and Alex for you playing 2 great decks for you.
I requested this matchup because Alex Landry joined Team Creativity at the wrong time. He started playing Creativity like a month and a half ago, right before Lord of the Rings came out. And I just feel in my bones that Creativity wasn't very good then, and it's got to be even worse now. So I just want to see it up against a deck of current build, Tron not the most popular, but I just want to see how the creativity engine stacks up against what's going on right now.
Yeah, with our announcement of triple modern team trios in Indy, Kai did put out the call for 2 more
Yeah,
Tron players. I don't know
yeah.
how well
Now,
he's going to find
we
those.
did play an event this Saturday where there were 2 Tron players registered, and Kai was the judge. So we know there's 3 within a 100-mile radius.
All right,
So
good
if
stuff.
Kai can find the 2 of them, they can get Team Tron.
Um,
Very excited for the Team Modern event as well.
of course,
Modern,
yeah. Let's talk about that for a second.
a format that I love, a format that you can see a lot of. It's a thriving format right now. The Pro Tour is coming up, which is really going to shake up the format. And there's a lot of new Modern and new Magic to see as we see our players drawing up their 7s. And it being non-unified, you might see a lot of people being, this is Team Burn, this is Team Living, and this is Team Tron. We used to have, back in the day of Star City tournaments, there used to be a team called the Storm Boys, and just 3 Storm players all showed up to do their thing. And you can imagine if a team gets really, really good at one deck, you can lean over to someone on the same deck, same strategy, be like, what do you think? What's going on here? That there's going to be a lot of decks with a lot of teams of 3 masters of that deck. Plus, there's going to be teams all mixed up, like Living End, 4-color, and Tron just being like, these are the decks that me and my 2 friends play, and we're here to, roll the lottery of which seat we sit in and who we play against. Might be like an unbelievable time for your left seat for the day. Maybe they're just in the perfect spot to play the perfect opponents, or you're going to see people showing up with all 3 the same deck.
I think that's a really good point because with our last team event, we had Pioneer, Modern, and Legacy, right? And like a Legacy player might lean over and be like, "Hey, is this a good keep?" And your Modern player's like, "I don't know. I don't even play that format, right?"
Right. As our players are getting started here, I had that experience playing in the Modern seat. You're in the middle, you're access to both players.
Mm-hmm.
Our Pioneer player, we just knew to like leave them be because they knew more about it than any of us did. But myself and the Legacy player checked in on like all of our hands. Like, are we sure? Is this something we want to do, or can we do better?
Mm-hmm.
As
Yeah.
we see Landry here using their mana to set up this Reprieve, picking up the spell that Kai went to cast on their turn.
Reprieve, of course, is a new addition. One of the Lord of the
Lord of the
Rings
Rings.
cards.
I think this is one of the cards that slots really well into creativity. They just want to buy time. This deck used to play Remand, but the deck, because of Leyline Binding and Prismatic Ending, is so incentivized to get white mana early that Reprieve plays really well off the stuff that you're thinking about getting early, as well as a lot of opponents bring in Veil of Summer against creativity because it counters Archon. Reprieve not being Remand, being white instead of being blue, doesn't catch the hate of cards like Veil of Summer.
Exactly. I see Alex has 2 lightning bolts in hand, which is great damage to Kai's face. Doesn't really do a lot otherwise.
Yeah, I imagine we might enter the flurry of just trying to get Archon into play to throw these upstairs, or maybe using 2 of them try to take down a Walker or a big threat from Kai's side. We have the timeline ticking up. We have Landry here getting their 3rd mana source in this basic mountain, getting very close to being in the creativity time, the creativity timeline, the creativity moments of getting 4 mana and further on from there. But we know immediately we're playing against this opponent with blue mana. A lot of interaction in the form of counter spells, even bounce spells out of Tron. So Landry's going to be really, really careful on when they try to go for their big explosive turn.
Cat does make a good point. Karn is a target for a lightning bolt,
Yes.
so you can't send one his way.
I found a lot when playing with the Tron variants that if you play Karn the Great Creator and take it down, it's at 3. If you play Karn Liberate and take it down, it's at 3. So puts you eerily in lightning bolt range if you're looking to do the more powerful abilities on 2 of their big planeswalkers. As we see them discarding Mindslaver, an important lock piece for the blue Tron decks. Always on the lookout for where the Mindslaver is. I played against a blue Tron opponent over the weekend. Turn 0, Gemstone Cavern, pitch Mindslaver. I knew immediately what deck they were playing.
Boy.
You do not see a lot of Mindslavers out in the wild, as we see Alex Landry here resolving Teferi, Time Raveler.
And of course, turn 4 will be very important for Landry, as that's his first turn that he can cast a creativity. I don't think he's got, unless he's got.
Ooh.
Sorry, let's talk about that for a second there.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, like you said, we were about to enter the 4th turn with Teferi Protection to be able to creativity, but Kai with these main decked engineered explosives cast on 0 with 2 mana up can be used to blow up any of the tokens Alex creates in response to that. Teferi shuts down spells, but not activated abilities. As we see another Teferi.
Interesting, but no, it's also little Teferi. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, And we're going to bounce this Engineering Explosive. An interesting choice just to draw a card. Remember, the EE is cast 4-0, so Kyle will be able to play it for free again next turn. But possibly holding up mana for something like a Spell Pierce to try to catch the explosives before it tries to catch them.
Let's see. He's flicking through those cards real fast there.
Oh, yeah. Lightning Bolt, Teferi, Fetch, Binding. And a
Oh,
Lightning
there
Bolt.
you go. That'll do it.
So not a Spell Pierce, but maybe looking to do an end step Binding. Because we have this Teferi, once we enter end step, Kai won't be able to interact with the Binding. The Binding will be able to lock away the Engineer Explosives, and then on Landry's turn, they'll be able to untap, be able to go for it with the protection of Teferi. As we can see, cutting this mana for Kai, Kai does not know about the impending doom that may be coming for them very soon here.
Just trying to pull up Kai's deck list here. Apologies.
We see this Field of Ruin coming into play. Again, Blue Tron, not the best at assembling Tron. One Tron land in play and an Expedition map had been activated.
And of course, I always need your help for even recognizing when Kai's assembled his Tron because he loves to play with his.
He
his
says the
little
Tron
mismatch
Discord
arts.
told him to play Mismatch, and I'm just saying they should not have said that.
Yeah. We need to go. We need to go tell them that they're wrong.
We can pay the $3 to get them new Tron lands.
Come on.
As we see, Kai did play out the Engineering Explosives again here. What's going to be important is, does Kai have a way to interact with this Teferi before we reach the end step? Interesting here out of Landry, we did not use our time to interact using that Leyline Binding, instead untapping and going to our own turn. Again, under this Teferi, feeling quite safe on our turn. Casting only legal in Modern, Expressive Iteration. The only spot where you can play this incredibly powerful card.
It's a great card. I haven't cast it in a long time, but I've had some good fun with it.
It's a card where you don't play because you play a lot of different decks, and then when you come back to a deck that can cast it, you're like, wow, this card is unbelievable.
Yeah.
As we see here, drawing a card and finding Landry this Dwarven Mine, getting our 5th mana source into play.
It's aged very well. It's like a year and a half old at this point. Strixhaven came out early in 2022, I believe.
Banned in the older brother and little sister versions of Modern, but right here in the middle, we're still allowed to play with it.
Did it not come out in 22?
It is from Strixhaven. It might be a lot older than we think it is.
Expressive Iteration is from Strixhaven, Dakota.
It is a Prismari card. You can see them dancing beautifully with the blue and the red swirling around them.
Did you forget about Expressive Iteration? Let me introduce you to a great card.
Or for all the boomers out there, it's an Is It card, blue and red, but it is from Strixhaven Prismari, the School of the Arts.
Right. They were like, oh, yeah, remember those guilds that everyone is a huge fan of and they love referring to? Let's give them all new names.
Yes, with this Fable of the Mirror Breaker coming into play, an unbelievable, powerful engine out of creativity. I will say, though, in...
Like Quandrix.
Yeah, in favor of Strixhaven, they did new things with the colors, which is not something that typically happens when you visit Ravnica 3-4 times. They go back to the same ideas, but giving brand new features to the colors. You know, instead of Boros being this, like, aggro-aggressive color, made they, like, care about artifacts and have this built-in recursion and the idea of history. Quandrix playing with math and counters, or Black and White playing with the like magecraft abilities and the like idea of writing.
Shadrix, I think.
Yeah, the big dragons, right? Like all the founders of the schools, like they did cool, interesting things. We see Landry putting I believe a Magmar, Pokemon Love into play here as our Goblin Shaman token. We might look around real quick, see if we can get an NRG series token for them to play for theirs.
We're out of those, man. They're real popular.
Oh, remember, shout out, you can play in one of those Saturday events to get tokens made of yourself by Inkland Customs, just like the teams did to get that Goblin Shaman.
Oh, yeah. I'm still waiting to hear what the team trios are picking for their token.
I bet it's going to be an Orc Army. That's perfect for a team, right? To do the Amass
token. That's a good call. That's really smart. Yeah. Especially with Bowmasters being so prevalent. I mean, Eric's Legacy he plays D&T. But I don't think he had switched to that tech yet.
But we've seen some big D&T truthers putting the Bowmasters into their decks. Stands, if you will, right, of D&T, playing the Black Splash, playing the Bowmaster. A lot of people thought Bowmaster would be the death of D&T once again, but instead it's just another part of it.
Exactly, yeah. D&T sticks around despite the increasing number of people that proclaim it is a dead deck.
Right. For game actions in play, all we've had so far is Kai activating their Field of Ruin to take Landry off one of their Triomes, but they're still sitting pretty. You see this EE being activated 2 tokens in play and the Fable starting to generate value. Kai decided this is the best time to do so before the Fable starts generating, or they all get creativity away, because again, that Teferi is in play. Be very, very careful as we see a power plant enter. 2 Tron pieces now for Kai.
So I was pulling a big order the other day, and in our back end, because there's different arts for the older versions of the Urza lands, of
Yep.
course, right? And it'll be like Urza's mine, and then in parentheses it'll be like sphere or whatever, right? And then
Yes.
I noticed that there is an Urza's mine parentheses tower.
Isn't that awful?
It's horrible. It makes me very upset. Why would they put a tower in a mine when there is an Urza's tower? Like, it makes no sense to me. What's up with the art direction there? Like, come
Yeah.
on. I know we're like 20 years too late, but
Yeah, we're a little too far from the times of being mad at it, but yes, one of the mines is categorized as the tower version of the mine. As we see Kai here using our little blue friend here to find the expedition map, which will be their 3rd piece of Tron whenever they feel that they're ready for it. But using a lot of our mana on this turn, just keeping up just the 1 blue source. Landry might feel that now is the time to be safe behind this Teferi. What interaction could Kai really have for this big explosive turn? If we have something like a fetch land or any way to generate a token for cheap, I see a Bloodstained Mire in their hand.
I believe Alex has missed upticking the Teferi. I don't know how many times, but
I believe it's just the once after we cycled over the other Teferi. But it's one of the hardest parts about playing with Planeswalkers is you're taking so many game actions, and you look at one and you go, I must have done you already, and you pass the turn.
Right. He does remember the fable or the
Yep.
the chapter saga trigger there, which is unmissable.
Yeah,
Right? So
very interesting. We discarded our fetch land, which is our source of a dwarf. Thankfully, we drew another one off of this looting here with the Fable, but really risky to get rid of our only source of getting a dwarf in play outside of this flip Fable. Thankfully, we did draw this Arid Mesa, but it's shocking that we got rid of our 1 fetch land.
yeah, maybe we'll have to ask Alex about that later. What decision he was maybe thinking about there.
What it probably
line.
is we've seen their hand. There's no creativity in it. So they might just be playing on the value plan of this is just a land. It's not of much use to me. I'm going to pitch this away for more cards that do more actions.
Fair enough, yeah.
A part of the thing is when you're playing creativity and you don't draw the namesake creativity card, your backup plan is just being a bad 4-color Omnath deck with no Omnath in it. You're just trying your best with these value pieces to generate together to have some sort of onslaught against your opponent. So Landry, not having that creativity in hand just yet, is probably playing under that assumption of just trying to get value in, get the beats on while Kai isn't fully set up. Like we even saw that they leyline binding to get a map out of the way. They're playing a little scared of Kai developing Tron while also trying to develop their own plan. The real back and forth tug and pull of the modern format.
And here comes a mage. Which one is it?
This is the big one. This is Treasure. So we played Trinket earlier to get the little tiny guys, and now we're playing Treasure to get a big card. I imagine we're looking for something to be our payoff after Tron, like a cityscape leveler.
Sure, yeah, we talked about that last time Kai was on. It's a house of a card.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable. It's basically a Titan like they had in the M11 cycle, like you see a Primeval Titan. This has, interestingly, a cast effect and an attack effect instead of an enter the battlefield effect. That allows them to remove something. So Kai's been having to play in such a way around this Teferi the whole game, not being able to interact in the way that Blue likes to interact, that we might be getting this leveler to have an answer down the line of this Teferi to, again, unlock cards in our hands, making me think we may have some counter magic in hand that we just would like to use at some point.
Absolutely, yeah. And it does notably, or maybe unnotably, give Alex a Power Stone. I'm looking at his deck list here. I don't think there's really any use for it.
Except to sacrifice to Indomitable Creativity.
Oh, right. Oh, of course.
It's a perfect card. And what I've heard sometimes out of creativity players is their strategy is to wait to play creativity until the very last moment. Generate as much value as you can from all of your cards, and then use creativity as a hammer instead of the beginnings. So Landry is kind of forced into that play pattern right now in this game, that they're going to generate just value with all of the pieces they have in play, such as here using their own Teferi to bounce their Fable, to replay their Fable, to start the cycle over again, just generating as much value as possible out of the pieces they have available.
And someone Chaz mentioning, notably, you can activate the reflections of Kikijiki with the Power Stone if that is ever.
Oh yeah, and that's
relevant.
wonderful, right? Just finding any small place where you can activate something like that.
Yeah. There's lots of small lines that you can take with all the different pieces on your board.
You see Landry breathe a sigh of relief as Kai slams a third art into play. There's a second tower.
There it is. It's that Urzamine Tower.
No,
Oh,
this is Tower
oh, it's
Power
Tower Tower.
Plant.
Wait. Oh, I saw. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
this is
Never
two
mind.
towers, Sauron
Ugh.
and Saruman, right?
I'm so confused, man. One day I'll get it. I swear.
Right. This is the, I believe, Autumn Tower and I believe Spring Tower. As you can see, the autumnal leaves in one tower and the beautiful spring sky in the other. As Karn the Great Creator, the beautiful Japanese War of the Spark version enters into play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so this is one of my favorite things. Kai did it very quickly here. You can use Karn's Minus to get a artifact in exile, such as under Leyline Binding. So they took their map from under the binding and replayed it.
Interesting. That's
Yeah.
goodness.
It's
Okay.
another reason, right? Karn does this dance with Prismatic Ending and Binding being the best removal spells in the format right now. Puts the card into exile, which is another safe space for Karn to reach in there and pull it out. So it being tucked under Binding allowed Kai to get this map back with. But now Landry has a loose Binding. So if we draw it to Fairy down the line, we could bounce this Binding with nothing under and gain a new Binding. But Kai's going to use this time to go big and assemble Tron.
These players are playing 4D chess. I only like working with like the battlefield and the graveyard, and they've got all sorts of other zones that they can mess around with.
The more you learn about the tiny spots where Karn the Great Creator's Minus can interact with the current modern format, as we saw, Kai's locked in a Bluetron for a while now and is an L2 judge in the area, learning all these tiny intricacies of ways they can interact with their deck and their opponent's deck. Checking Kai's entire mana base.
Just trying to make sure we know exactly what they're working with here.
Yeah, I am not sure what has prompted Landry to want to check exactly the mana base here.
Do they have a Field of Ruin or something, perhaps?
It's interesting to think about what forms of interaction they may have.
I'm looking at their
We
land
do have
base
one main deck
here.
Beseiju in Landry's deck. They may be wondering if we can attack Tron, and there is a lone power plant in there, so we might be going after the Tron plan and want to check the mana because of those mismatched Tron lands, figure out exactly where the best point of interaction is.
Alex holding up a Prismatic Ending here.
Oh, we might go after the map to remove Tron, and then use the Beseiju in our hand to go after Tron again. But it looks to be a Fable, so we may have just been thinking, does Kai have Tron? Should we take out the map here? Realizing that Kai has not assembled Tron and has shown us 2 towers instead of completion of Tron, which means Kai most likely does not have it in hand, so we've used our binding to remove the map.
It's done. Now we have 2 Fables. We got that Goblin Shaman, and then we got this Teferi that has stuck around for a while.
Yeah, which has probably been a thorn in Kai's side. As we know, they are stuck with that Cityscape Leveler still in hand, just not getting up to 8 mana just yet.
Yeah.
And Landry inching ever closer to the reflection of Kiki Jiki dance. Have you seen the dance?
No, what does that mean?
So if both of these reflections get to flip, right? They have the pay 1 to make a copy of another creature in play, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you have one that is non-summoning sick, you can use your 1 mana to copy the other reflection, which makes a reflection. That new reflection can copy one of the reflections and make a reflection. And they literally, you can see them tapping back and forth, right? That's why I call it the dance. And because this is worded like old Kiki Jiki, they get exiled at the beginning of the next end step. So what you do is in your opponent's end step, you do the dance. You make tons of copies of your Fable. And then because an end step has already occurred, your turn begins and you get to keep them because they haven't seen the I need to go away trigger. And then you have 6, 8, 10 reflections of Kiki Jiki in play that can just attack your opponent now. So
not technically infinite because you need a mana to
activate.
Activate,
Mana each time, right? So you can usually get to like 6 or 8, or Landry has 8 mana right now, right? So we could do that 8 times plus the 2 we have. We'd have 10 total reflections. So Kai needs to be careful because their timeline is quickly dwindling because of the 2 Fables in play.
And the reflections have 2 power, 2 toughness.
Yeah,
right?
they're 2/2s, right? So if we can get up to 10 of them, that's just 20 power in play all of a sudden. That can happen 2 turns from now after these Fable triggers. And not only that, but if we can wait for the first one to target, we can then use that flip side to make a copy of our Goblin before the second one's unlocked. So 2 Fables can be a threat all by themselves. And we see a new Karn here out of Kai. But these 2 Fables are threatening Kai. And then still, if you remember, Landry's playing creativity. So we're
Right,
gonna
we
make our
haven't seen it yet,
right.
but
So
he
our,
does play 4.
our opponent's gonna spend all this time interacting with what we have now, and we're just waiting, waiting, waiting. Oof.
Oh, a Stone Brain could take all those creativities out of his deck, though.
Now, Haviva, let's say that you are Kai right here. Would
Uh-huh.
you name Archon of Cruelty or would you name Indomitable Creativity? What would you strip away from your opponent's deck?
Uh, I mean, I- Archon? I think Archon, right? Because the creativity can't grab anything else.
I would agree, right? If I leave Archon in my opponent's deck, they already have 8 mana in play and
Mhm.
a card that could create treasures, even though I do have a Karn.
And there he goes. He's
We're
grabbing the
taking the Archons
Archons.
because now that means the 4 creativities in Landry's deck are blank draws. They literally can't do anything except act as maybe removal spells for Kai's creatures and artifacts in play. But that's risky to let them flip into whatever they may find off their deck. So I like the choice here of Archon because we're already in hardcast mode if Landry had drawn an Archon. So we're going to remove those so that we're removing a creativity payoff and a threat.
Your experience as a teacher really showed there. I feel like you really like helped me get to the conclusion there, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely, right? Leading questions.
Yeah.
But it just helps anyone out there, especially when you're using like a surgical effect or something like a stone brain. It's important to know what targets you're going after, right? A lot of people out there will write sideboard guides or like pay for a Patreon and like
Hmm.
understand how to like sideboard interact in a matchup. I recommend if you're playing a deck with a surgical extraction or a stone brain, you should also, as a part of that, understand what targets, what you're going after. Because it doesn't help to have the card and then shoot in the dark. You want to know exactly what you're shooting for when you search for that.
Four Dogs in chat is suggesting that there could be some nuance there because some creativity decks do play a one of Atraxa. We do have Alex's deck list up here though. He's
Yes.
just rocking 3 Archons. So no Atraxa to play around there.
And a part of that
Um,
is because of these effects like this, right?
Sure.
Some people are moving also away from Archon in the age of the One Rings. People have been moving towards playing cards like Atraxa, like they said. Some people are moving to like a 2x Sundering Titan sideboard, just like really slamming into other people. Some people have Emrakul's in their sideboard, Elish Norns in their sideboards, Furies in their sideboards. And the question is main board, is it just the Archons? And Kai has learned, yes, that is the fact now.
Right, because he gets to look through Alex's whole deck when he's
Right.
Stone Brains.
So the question post board will be what threats are we working with? And that's a good reason to spend sideboard slots on alternate threats. Opponents will have things like Unmoored Egro, Necromentia, the Stone Braid, these cards trying to take your threats away from you. So sometimes you'll see alternate threats on the board. One, to play around other cards, like taking Archons out against Veil of Summer decks. But also you sometimes will see bringing in like Elish Norns against 4-color decks where it's like, I can cast this and creativity into this.
Oh, and Alex is scooping up here. Oh.
We think it might have been a little situation with the understanding of the rules and interactions with the cards. Might have just figured out that between what was going on, it just was not going to go well from here. Kai showing that the Karn would have found a Sundering Titan, which just like Sundering Titan against 4-color, Sundering Titan against creativity can be a real hammer and a deal breaker in those matchups.
Yeah, so it looks like he misresolved the second chapter of the saga there and was looking like a pretty rough situation anyway with Kai's board state. So we're just gonna scoop it up instead of trying to messily sort of
Right.
resolve the
And that shows awareness of the clock, right? If you
Absolutely.
feel behind in a matchup and you're playing against these big interactive control decks like this, you're gonna need time for games 2 and 3. So in a situation like that, understanding where you're at and scooping up to make sure you have time for those other games.
Absolutely. Let's take a look at Alex's deck list here so we can see what he's working with. Dom, let's take a look at that sideboard.
So the beginning here is what I was talking about before. That have alternate threats in their board. We're looking at Elish Norn, Mother Machines, and Emrakul the Aeon Storm, backed up by Blossoming Calm, Flusterstorm, 3 Strike It Rich, 2 Turn the Earth, 2 Veil of Summer, a Hollowed Moonlight, a Crumble to Dust, a Beseiju Who Endures, and the Plains. The reason I want to focus on this Crumble to Dust is the popularity of Tron decks now has forced these players with these big greedy mana bases like Creativity and 4-color to move towards Crumble to Dust. Those who don't know, it is both a land destruction spell and a surgical extraction effect for the land you blow up. So if you target an Urza's tower in play, it destroys that tower and removes every tower from their deck. So this is a hammer that people are using now to beat up on these creativity decks because they're here to beat up on these greedy mana decks. Additionally, we see a Beseiju Who Endures in the sideboard to complement the one in the main deck, plus our Ren and 6s. That's also a big engine against these big mana decks, just to clear them out of their Tron pieces. Interestingly, it'll be more important against a green Tron opponent who has trouble scraping back into the game, but blue Tron can interact on a lower mana count, more island count, as we see in most of these games, right? They're slow to develop Tron, just playing normally off their mana. We're looking here at the other sideboard cards. There's 2 Veil of Summers. Our opponent is blue Tron, one of the cards written on Veil, but the question is there enough blue cards you're worried about versus colorless cards you're worried about? Because the worst feeling is going to be if you have a Veil of Summer and your opponent has a colorless spell that is the one you wanted to interact with, and you're stuck with that Veil. But they might be playing enough blue cards that you can cycle it away if you feel you're in that kind of situation. And I know we lean a lot of times in Landry's deck out of Striker Rich sometimes. He's been a big believer in this card, sometimes being brought in matchups just to accelerate your mana when playing against an interactive opponent, right? You could spend turn 1 to play Striker Rich to make your treasure token kind of like a Lotus Petal out of a Legacy deck, just to jump a turn forward on their turn 2 or 3. And we'll see this out of Kai's sideboard thoughts as well.
Yeah, let's take a look at his deck here.
We're looking at Karn targets. We have Walking Ballista, Wormcoil Engine, Cityscape Leveler, Sundering Titan, 2 Spatial Contortions. Those are actual sideboard interactive spells, followed up by a Chalice of the Void, Engineer Explosive, Relic of Progenitus, Coding, Stonebrain, O-Stone, One Ring. A lot of sideboard slots. The real question is, did we bring in Subtlety for this matchup? Maybe if we're worried about the Planeswalkers. And did we bring in those Spatial Contortions? Maybe if we're looking to interact with the creatures that Landry's putting into play. Contortion really good against Dwarves and Fable tokens, not so good against Archons. So we have to decide where we want to interact.
Absolutely. Someone in chat is asking, we talked about this earlier, but we can reiterate, why the white versus the blue Remand? Why is Landry running a Reprieve here instead of Remand?
So one of the cards that really highlights that is a card in Landry's sideboard in Veil of Summer, a card that interacts so heavily with Remand, the blue interactive spell. Reprieve being white does not go headfirst into that. Remand also goes headfirst into people playing main deck Mystical Disputes, like out of the Team of Rhino decks right now. Reprieve gets around both of those. It also just gets around uncounterable. Reprieve doesn't actually counter, it just returns the spell to their hand. So instead of countering it with that exact wording, instead just returns it. And finally, the creativity deck, as we see Landry here with Jetmir's Garden, is so incentivized to get our white source early. Reprieve cast off those white sources instead of Remand off of a necessary blue source. We always start in creativity off Jetmir's Garden. It's just the best spot nowadays, and Reprieve's always castable.
Absolutely, yeah. And here's a good card for Alex. He's put down a Renin 6. Will help enable him to get all those land drops, which are really important for creativity, and of course get those fetch lands to go grab Dwarven Mines later on.
And we played really smart. We waited until turn 3 to go for this Renin 6 to have Spell Pierce back up. So when Kai trying to interact with this Remand, it got pierced, and now we have a large chance of this Renin 6 resolving.
Very nicely done. And it looks like it is going to resolve here.
Yeah, Kai might just be debating on a Force of Negation, but this is the look of someone who's letting a Renin 6 resolve. You can see the gears start turning of, oh, I thought I had an answer. Now how am I going to interact here? And we see Landry with a Beseiju in hand. The Renin 6 Beseiju lock is very difficult for these big mana decks.
Oh boy, it is.
Like we were saying, it's easier on a blue Tron opponent who's, used to playing on smaller mana on a lot of blue sources and less Tron. But it might just help Landry put the pressure on. And this Renin 6 has already drawn a card in that fetch land. So even though Kai might try to interact with Renin 6, it's kind of already done part of its duty. And we see Kai might be relying on assembling Tron with a tower and a power plant already. That Landry with an uninteractable, almost uncounterable Beseiju is going to be able to interact with these Tron pieces.
Absolutely, yep. And he does have creativity here in hand. Is going to just pass it back to Kai, I believe.
Yep.
And on his end step, going to cast a Thirst.
Draw some cards, possibly discard an artifact. We shall see.
He's got a lot in his deck, so.
These decks built entirely mostly around artifacts. We see discarding our blue cards, so 2 cards are going to go. An Impulse and our little tiny mage.
Little trinket mage there.
Interesting choice, Landry here in upkeep. Going to fetch a little bit of a legacy move. Doing stuff in the upkeeps, making your opponent really think before they get to draw their cards. Possibly wanting something to resolve here while Kai is on less cards available, but unsure what would be at instant speed that he's this interested in.
I mean, he's got Spell Pierces. He's got He does have that Boseiju that we talked about.
And it looks like Kai floated mana and is having a land destroyed. So it looks like we are Besiegeing in the upkeep. Just to get that out of here so that Kai does not have access to that mana during their main phase. Because you could see if Kai had played a third Tron land during his main phase, you as a player don't get a window to interact until a spell is on the stack. So Kai would have had a moment with Tron for a spell. Landry, instead doing it here in the upkeep, does not give Kai that opportunity to have a moment with Tron.
Yeah, taking more of a controlling sort of role in this game too.
Absolutely, right? As we saw, they got to play the 4-color strategy of just playing some of the best cards in Modern and eking their value out. And here they're looking to do a similar thing until just catching the right moment where Kai just doesn't quite have enough interaction. We'll try to slam that creativity in our hand.
Kai thinking? I thought we were frozen for a second.
Right, that's always the worry, but you can like look and see that like, okay, someone is moving on camera. We're just deep in thought.
Absolutely.
Using that newfound island we got for a Cyclonic Rift, single target must be trying to bounce this Renin 6 back to Landry's hand using the mana floating from the Tron land that was removed.
Right.
Plus the blue mana we received, using this to bounce that Renin 6, playing out an Odawara and passing the turn back to Alex. It's so terrifying to play against an interactive deck like Blue Tron or any control opponent.
Absolutely.
And them taking their time and not truly doing a lot. They either don't have a lot or they have so much and they're just waiting for what you're going to do. Such as the hammer that is Teferi, right? We saw it was incredibly difficult for Kai to interact with in the first game. We see him hard casting, spending all of his mana on a force negation to make sure that gets out of here. But Landry moving real quickly post Teferi.
Already down to 10 life off all these different shock lands and fetches.
That was my experience with creativity. A part of the reason why I don't play this deck anymore is you spend so much of your life so fast to get this really greedy mana base into play, and you don't have a card like Omnath to lean on to really bolster your life total back up. Your only thing you can lean on is Archon of Cruelties if they're resolving and using their triggers. But we see them here at 10, using this moment to resolve a Renin 6, hopefully, because our opponent just used their force. So I move so quick.
A lot of shuffling, too. Probably go through a ton of sleeves.
Oh, yeah. I've started trending of using basically a new box of sleeves like once a month now in the modern format.
What's your sleeve of choice there?
Right now it is the new Dragon Shield Dual Mat Wisdom, the new blues.
The blues are so pretty. I think we talked about that last week too. Oh, I love that color.
I just think Magic cards with their black borders look really good with the black inners of those sleeves now, and allows the art on your cards to really sing while allowing you the customization of the outer sleeve.
Absolutely.
Wait, Dwarven Beats.
Yeah. 20 turn clock, baby.
Yeah, but then if they get a second dwarf, then the clock gets real fast. We see this Scalding Turn going back to hand.
Just a lot of spells here. A lot of different lines of play that Alex can take here. A lot of shuffling around a mana, you know.
Absolutely, and the hardest part is not only do you need to make the choice of what card you want to play, but you're kind of deciding what card do you want to maybe get counterspelled.
Sure, yeah.
Because when you're playing as these blue interactive decks, we started with this Fable of the Mirror Breaker, probably really expecting it to get countered, and then we're very excited when it resolved. Because again, this card generates a lot of value.
But a Brazen Borrower is going to bounce this token.
Yeah, but this borrower is dealing with a third, maybe a fourth of this Fable, right? The Fable still is going to loot cards for us next turn, flip over into a 2/2 with a very relevant ability. We're trading half of this borrower for very little of the Fable. And we see this binding eating up the cast of the Brazen Borrower as well.
Maybe Kai saw Alex at a low life total and was like, maybe I just try for a quick couple beats here. Brazen Borrower is a flyer. Landry, of course, has like the Archon that can deal with that. But if that's resolving, then I don't think that Brazen Borrower is going to be relevant anyway.
Yeah, I think that's really important. The idea of a player moving from trying to not lose to trying to win. Kai just had one of those moments of, Kai's definitely been trying for a while here to not lose this game, and they realize that if they can cast that borrower and it stays in play, they can transition quickly from trying to not lose to trying to win.
I think we've talked about that a lot in games, especially with like a lot of the control players. Kai, even specifically, you know, players doing a really good job of recognizing their role in a game, right? Especially with
Yes.
control players. You know, they spend so long just like delaying, and then eventually, I think George has talked about it a lot. Finally,
Yeah.
starting to turn things sideways and take a more aggressive role.
And I think it's a big moment for players who lean towards these control strategies, that it's kind of a growing moment to realize, start noticing those moments and
Mhm.
noticing them sooner.
Yeah.
You spend so much of the game trying to not lose, like I said, and being able to start recognizing those moments like, oh, if I hard cast my Solitude here, my opponent's dead in 3 turns.
Yeah.
Versus, oh, this Solitude in my hand is a removal spell, I'm going to hold on to this. Recognizing those moments is a big level up moment if you're inclined to play these more controlling strategies.
Absolutely. I think that really separates sort of the beginner, masters, intermediate
Right.
level of players.
And it also separates the control players who go to time versus the ones that don't go to time.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that really shows sometimes in like deck choice as well, that some people don't lean toward these controlling strategies because they may feel, well, how do they ever win a game? And then there's the ones that are deep in the trenches can kind of find those moments and see those.
All right, Alex going even deeper into his life total here, down to 8 with this fetch.
But we got another dwarf.
And we got a creativity in hand still. I'm waiting for him to cast it.
It's really interesting, right? Because Kai let a Fable resolve, Kai
Mhm.
let a Binding resolve.
Mhm.
So the question is, do they have nothing or are they waiting for you to have that creativity?
I don't know. Have you seen Kai's hand at all?
No.
Here comes the creativity, and there it
There's the force.
is. Wow, just very, very patient play from Kai there.
The question is, and Landry just lets it go. So I was wondering, like, maybe they had a reprieve or a spell pierce. Like, Kai doesn't have that much mana to work with.
Mhm.
And sometimes it might be worth it to just make your opponent spend mana, and
Alex also has a second creativity in hand.
which
Um,
is always an interesting thing again against a controlling opponent. You get to choose what do you want to be countered, right?
mhm.
When you see those moments where your opponent's leaving something up, do I go for it here because if it resolves, I'm in great shape, and if they counter it, I'm in great shape for later. So Landry using their time now, I want to play out this first one to eat up a counter spell to mean there's less counter spells when I go for the second one.
Speaking of time, we do have about 15 minutes here. They are on feature match time, so they got about I would say like 18 minutes before time is called. If Alex wants to win against a more dirty deck like this, he is going to have to start applying pressure to Kai here.
Absolutely. And if you see them cycling through their hand, they do have a spell Pierce, but the amount of mana out of the Blue-Tron player
Oh yeah.
now, we're not going to be able to pierce them. So we're going to be trying to catch a moment, maybe try to draw up into a Teferi or some other form of protection before we
Mhm.
go for this creativity. But Landry needs to be aware that we need to win this game and another one. We need to start moving quick.
Absolutely. And remind me of Blast Zone. Is it exactly equal to the counters on it?
Yes, it is
Okay.
always exactly, and Blast Zone enters with 1, as we've seen Kai rumbling with the Hall of the Storm Giants. Blast Zone designed specifically to not hit tokens. It enters with 1, so in order for you to ever get tokens, you have to somehow remove those counters. And we can see, like we were saying
Is
before,
it a charge counter? Can we power search it,
it
or
might
what's the
be.
search node? What was that card?
But we see Landry here going to 1 off the combat damage from this Hall. As we were saying
Sheesh.
last turn, right? That understanding of when to turn that clock and attack as the control opponent. Kai decided that's their window, and it came through. So all of Landry's fetch lands are turned off now.
Indeed, that's a really good point too. Yeah, he spent so much time fetching, and now he
Oh,
is completely out.
but Kai was tapped out for the Hall, which means Landry's second creativity is going to resolve unless Kai has a force, and we're moving quickly.
Oh boy, yeah. Alex knows he's got the clock to beat. In addition to Kai here,
And
and
we
he is
see
going.
Strike It Rich came in this matchup, like we said, possibly speeding up that clock. And we see the second Beseiju also came in. So even though that wasn't much of our deck, if Kai was paying close attention, we learned 2 really important pieces of how Landry sideboarded in this matchup. And now Kai's got a look on their face of, I'm losing my hand. There's these 2 Archons. Do we have enough to
Oh,
come back?
I think Landry might have missed the third chapter there on the Fable.
That does look to be correct. We will try to get that real quick just to get that flipped over. The card does have Summoning Sickness, so shouldn't impact what's going on too much, but we'll just get that flipped over for y'all real
Yeah.
quick.
Thank you so much there, Kat. Appreciate it.
There are so many things to keep track of in this game, and we're just going to give that a little flip skiddy real quick. Playing against our L2 judge here in the house, Kai saying, yep, you flip it. You just get it now when we realize what's happening.
Yep. There we go.
But And this is a very beneficial thing for us for the realization this needs to flip over, because if Landry can enter their turn with this non-summoning stick Fable and one of these Archons, we can make a third Archon.
Oh boy.
Um, and sometimes these Archons just are Lightning Helixes, right? Sometimes they just deal 3 and take 3 to gain you back up. And if we can get a third one and attack in, 3 Archons attacking is 6, 12, 18, 24, plus the ETB is 27 damage available to us next turn. Archons do not take their time. And it looks like that's the decider. We were 1 life point away from that Hall of Storm Giant killing Alex Landry. It looks like we're going to take this moment to go to game number 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Nicely done there by Alex. So we got a game apiece for each of our players here. While we're waiting for them to shuffle back up, let's take a look at our next NRG Series event. We'll be heading down to Detroit, or heading up, excuse me, to Detroit. We'll be in Michigan the second weekend of August there for our Modern Showdown and our Pioneer Trial. We got more than $15,000 to give away that weekend. So why don't you come on down and play in our events? We got fantastic events for you there. If the main events aren't your jam, we of course have plenty of side events. We got some artists in the house. I believe we have Phil Stone, and then RK Post is the next event in Indy. Unfortunately, it'll be my first NRG event that I'll be missing since I've started working for the store in the series. It's actually the anniversary of when I first joined.
Oh my goodness.
And I believe you're not going to be there either, but we'll have so many great players.
Nah, I'll be
so
there.
many great. Oh.
I changed my plans.
Did you bait me?
No, I had family plans. I've canceled those for a modern tournament.
I love it. We love to see it.
And I'm gonna get a bunch of Phil Stone signatures.
Oh, absolutely. I think I gotta get some of my art cards down with Dakota.
Oh, that'd be so cool to have the gold signature and the black signature with it.
Yeah, I have a Dan Scott mysterious limousine that's stamped
Oh.
and signed.
My plan is to take my Commander All-Star Ancient Copper Dragon.
Ooh,
Get
very
that
nice.
signed by Phil Stone.
Yeah,
and
Phil Stone's got a lot of the nice showcase D&D
yes,
arts.
and including the lightning bolts I like. They did the
Oh yeah,
the
absolutely.
D&D rulebook lightning bolts. I've been playing with those for a while. And Phil Stone's got a beautiful signature, just really legible on their name. So I'm excited to get those on those bolts and on that big old dragon.
Yeah, so we got that fantastic energy event for you, of course. And while we're waiting to figure out starting hands here, make sure to drop a follow. We do also have a sub button now. We have hit affiliate. We are at exactly, I don't know if our follow
We were
total
at
has
600 when we began the
600
night.
even. Yeah, thank you all so much for joining us week in and week out. We'll be here every Wednesday with Modern and Thursdays with Pokemon.
Alex Landry had I would say a bad hand that we kept here.
Yeah.
Immediately fixed by drawing this Triome. But we have a natural Dwarven Mine in hand, and on our 6 we drew an Archon, the perfect card to throw to the bottom. One of the easy parts about mulliganing with creativity is if you draw a creativity target and you're mulliganing, put that on the bottom. We do not need to see that right now.
Definitely do not.
And thankfully, we only had Dwarven Mine Bloodstained Mire and a Renin 6 to kind of get our hand going for our creativity player. Thankfully, drew that Xander's Lounge, and now we're really going to have nice mana for this game. And importantly, on Kai's side, we have a map and a cracked map. So we're going to have a power plant and a tower. Remember, Blue Tron doesn't need Tron to activate, but boy, does it power them up when they do.
Absolutely.
As we see them tapping out for the Treasure Mage. We're on the hunt for a big boy, but we're using Reprieve to put that back in their hand. Very importantly here, though, this is incentivizing us to go get our Sacred Foundry, and the only other land in our hand is Dwarven Mine. Renin 6 is now uncastable currently.
Oh, yeah.
Which is usually the mana engine in this deck. This is another part of having these greedy 4 and 5 color mana bases, is sometimes if an opponent forces you to interact, and you've brought interactive pieces like Reprieve, now you're shut off of some of your really powerful spells. As we draw Evercool. Oh.
Yeah, I hate to see a player draw their one of creativity target there.
And Landry revealing a lot of information as Kai assembles Tron. When you play a tapped Dwarven Mine out of a creativity deck, they know that you don't have any other lands left. You would never spend this. George and I used to talk a lot about like wasting Dwarven Mines when they're so important in your strategy. This one truly was wasted. Just a tapped mountain, no dwarf, no effect. Kai now resolving Karn the Great Creator. Landry has 2 Renin 6s stuck in their hand now.
And a Veil of Summer, too. I don't know if you caught that.
And
a lot of green spells.
And the one source we don't have is green.
Yep.
So right now we have 4 dead cards in our hand. 2 Rens of oh yeah, the sweater's coming.
Feeling the
It
heat
is
now.
business time.
Oh, and here comes the Stone Brain too. Oh, this game is
Oh,
quickly getting out of
but
hand for Alex.
are we naming creativity or Archon? Because if we name creativity, we can strip that. But if we name Archon, we have this Emrakul in hand
Right.
that we can discard to say hand size, a Fable. Like there are ways to get rid of this Emrakul. So it'll be interesting on what Kai is going to target here. We're revealing our hand. It was none of those cards. Right, the only castable in our hand is Prismatic Ending and Teferi. And Kai, interestingly, right, in game 1, named Archon of Cruelty. Remove those. But now that we're in a post-board game, they're naming Creativity. So Landry brought in alternate threats, like this giant Emrakul stuck in their hand,
Right.
but does not have creativity to play towards them anymore.
Exactly, yeah. Once you diversify, then you want to go after the tutor.
Right.
But in game 1, when you only have the one target, you want to go after the tutor itself. Or
right.
quote-unquote the tutor, you know.
And we have good guy Landry here. Kai only found 3 creativities, but Landry found the 4th one for them before shuffling up.
How does that work? If your opponent
I
doesn't
have to ask
grab it?
Kai. There's been a couple of rule changes that have been a little nicer towards, players doing things in that realm.
And I think it's good for the health of the game, too.
Yeah, it used to just be like, oops, sorry. And I assume the rule is probably a little kinder to players nowadays.
Like missing like your pack triggers.
Yeah.
You just do it once you realize it. But before you were just like, oh, you're screwed.
Yeah, sometimes you can be a little bit too far along in a game. As we see Landry here scooping up to just awkward mana and Kai showing Sundering Titan. The bullet, the destroy.
It's too close. It's blurry.
I will say Sundering Titan is a card that was one of my favorites to play out of this Tron deck. And now as someone trying out these greedy mana bases, it is the scariest card to see out there. Landry brought in that Emrakul, probably also brought in that Elish Norn, scared of cards like that. But Kai here taking it down 2-1.
Oh. All right, let's talk about the upcoming series events after Detroit. We'll be heading down to Indianapolis for our double 10K weekend. We did just announce this morning that our team trial is switching to a triple modern event due to the changes in the legacy sort of qualifications with the RC there. And of course, we have our Pioneer Showdown on Saturday. I didn't mention this before, but winners of our Showdown events automatically qualify for our championship events, our 16-player invitational, which of course, the winner of gets a bid to the Pro Tour. Very exciting there.
And those Showdown wins get you that custom Inkling.
Oh, gotta mention the token.
Some people are out there for the token, like
I want the token.
It's so cool. It's
so
an unbelievable payoff.
Dude, when our team Eric's team won in St. Louis, they didn't even remember that it got them the chance. They were just so excited about winning the event because that in itself is such an achievement, right? But you also get all these extra bonuses on top of it.
I do put my bid out there. Like I said, I do not know, but if I won a team tournament, I would pick the Amass Orc Army. I really hope. I don't know anything. I'm shooting in the dark. I hope they chose the army token.
There's a couple more army tokens now. Of course, the original, the zombie token, but I did see there was a Sliver army.
Yeah, for you Commander fans out there, the new Sliver deck coming out makes Sliver armies now as well.
Yeah, of course. And then in Indianapolis, we do also have RK Post showing up as a notable artist there.
Gonna get my Legacy Unmasked signed by
yes,
RK Post.
Absolutely. With that being said, we will head into a commercial while we pick out round 3 features. Thanks for watching.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back, folks. We're in round 3 of 4. We got a good one for you here. We got David and Jovan. Jovan we just had to consult with because he registered his deck, quote-unquote registered, under blue-white control, but Dom noticed that he has an expressive iteration in his starting hand. So.
Yes, so Jovan said this is blue-white in quotes, which just to me means it's the spirit of blue-white, but we can see an Omnath, a Renin 6. This might be the 4-color control version versus the 4-color full and elementals version of these decks.
Fortunately, we've seen David on camera a bunch. He's running a very stock list of Rakdos scams, so nothing fancy going on there.
I just have to cement every time that we see David play that he is the nicest guy on the meanest deck.
Exactly, yeah. Scam getting off to a classic start here, of course, though. A turn 1 Ragavan. And
being met, taking that prismatic ending that would have been an answer to the Ragavan, and instead stealing that off the top, taking it away from Jovan. And we're playing another answer in this. Turn 2 Renin 6, going down, dealing 1, getting Ragavan out of here. This Renin 6, a part of the reason that cards like Delighted Halfling. Oh, sorry. I spoke with David before the tournament, and he said, I found this new card that I'm really in love with. And I'm like, oh no, what card is David gonna like bring out of the woodwork today? He goes, it's Lightning Bolt. And we were all
I
like,
love.
yeah, David, the card's great. Because, as Scam moved forward, they kind of cut them. We're playing pushes, we're playing a lot of different interaction.
Sure, yeah.
And David's like, I'm going back to Bolt. Put 4 bolts back in this Rakdos Scam deck.
I love it.
And it seems to be working, 2-0 and using it right now to take care of that Renin 6.
Yeah, David just really consistent with this deck. He's found a deck that he really likes, has gotten really good with it, and has put up the results.
Yeah, absolutely. It really shows like how important it is to get mastery of a deck, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's always this back and forth debate in the world of Magic on mastery versus power, right?
Mhm.
There are some people who are best deckers, as we see this grief coming into play, revealing all of what Jovan's working with. We can see that our opponent on the right here might be one of those people just playing the most powerful cards in Magic
Mm-hmm.
versus David playing a deck they know really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is where do those edges get gained? Can you gain edges in firm understanding of your deck? Can you gain edges in playing the really, really powerful cards? Both really add up over time, and that's how you can sometimes see players with, say, like a Merfolk deck that people don't really believe in, but it's unbelievably powerful in the hands of a Merfolk master who's just out there and knows exactly how each interaction works, can really level up your game. So never worry if maybe you don't have the availability to play the best deck at the time. Get really, really good at the deck you do have.
Absolutely. We talked about it last round with Kai, playing with those sort of nuanced lines with using the exile under the leyline binding to grab that map back, all sorts of little neat tricks once you really know the ins and out of every single one of the cards in your deck.
Absolutely. As we see this expressive iteration doing what it does best, drawing a card and finding a land. I'm a big fan
Classic.
of Jovan's deck on the right, playing this more controlling version of having cards like Counterspell and Teferi and having this interactive plan, but backing it up with expressive iteration, Renin 6, Omnath, having just the backup of power in your control strategy. So instead of leaning on something like we saw Brian earlier with a lot of free spells and the ring, Jovan's using the power of Modern as a format to back up their control strategy.
Very well said there.
And they very well might also have rings. I'm not quite sure how deep our blue-white control player has gone.
Yeah, he did not submit a deck list tonight, unfortunately. We got a lot of regulars. I mean, it takes only just a few minutes to type in a deck list on Goldfish.
And speaking of which, David getting a second grief into play, really going to strip the power away from Jovan's hand. Thankfully, there's 2 Omnats in there, so David can't quite break that up here. But 2 3/2s with Menace is quite the clock if we can take care of this. Next turn we're going to play an Omnath, but it's not going to gain the life.
Mm-hmm.
We are turns away from these Omnaths gaining the life back, and these Griefs have Menace. So next turn when Jovan taps out for the Omnath blocker, it can't block. They both have Menace, and 6 damage is still coming through. Right now, Jovan might just be dead.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with this sort of not greedy mana base, but extensive mana base with a lot of shock lands. He's already at 12 life before David has,
right, which
I
is
think, swung at him. Right.
Talking about clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
These 2 Griefs are 6 damage.
Two turns
Jovan's going
left.
to tap out here for an Omnath. They're going to rumble in for 6 damage. And if David can find an answer to that Omnath, Jovan won't have a chance to gain that life, and then those Griefs can rumble in again. If David has something like a Terminate or a Fury to take care of that Omnath after it comes down, they might be able to just slam in for 2 turns straight here and get this game done with.
And Jovan potentially put himself to a 1-turn clock because David does have some bolts in hand. He already showed one. Or not in hand, but in deck.
David has fallen in love with Lightning Bolt again, a classic Magic player experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
As we see, tapping out for a 4-mana Prismatic Ending to get these Griefs out of here, giving ourselves a lot more time to untap next turn with Omnath plus Fetch Land to really try to claw back into the game. And as we see out of Jovan, we see that Kahira up in the top letting us know that they're running all elementals, nothing like an Elish Norn or a Delighted Halfling hanging out here. It's just walkers and elementals and interaction.
David hitting all of his land drops here, potentially starting to flood.
But this is Fury mana. 5 is maybe the last time that this deck wants to make a land drop.
Basically.
Just have access to hard casting every card in the deck. And we see 2 mana for a Dothy Voidwalker.
That can be pretty scary at a low life. There's nothing in Jovan's deck that can block that, of course, because it does have that pesky shadow.
Every time we watch a match of Scam, what is the most important card?
Season Pyromancer. Easy peasy, baby. Let's refill that hand.
And I think part of this is how skilled David is in playing this deck. He waited until his very last card in his hand to play out that Pyromancer, to just draw 2 cards off this 3-mana threat.
He's got a pretty scary board state here now. Jovan's just got the one blocker.
Yeah, and going up to 10, 10's not a lot, because remember, the Grief has Menace, and the Dothy fights in the Shadow Realm and can't be blocked by this Omnath. So truly, Jovan's kind of at 4, and importantly here, you see they did not crack their Windswept Heath. Instead of cracking and gaining the 4 mana off the second Omnath trigger, we're going to crack it on David's turn and get mode 1 of an Omnath to gain 4 life. So instead of this fetch land equaling 3 life gain and 4 mana, we're instead going to use it to gain 7 life overall in this interaction to try to claw back in against this clock that David's applying.
Yeah, and getting just a basic there too, not wanting to shock and
right. We want to be
take
very
yourself
careful with our mana.
even lower there.
And we might be playing a Leyline Binding here, right? Getting a white source with full domain, and there it is.
Nice call out there.
Get that Fury out of here. David, that's not where that Fury go. There it goes.
Yeah, there we are.
David's so used to his cards being scammed and going directly to the graveyard that when the binding happens, where does it even go?
Sure, yeah, or just into the void with Dothy.
Right, yeah. A lot of cards go to a lot of places nowadays in the interactions in Magic.
So many zones to keep track of.
Right, so we can see Jovan's Exile has the Prismatic ending, but then has the Omnath away from the Prismatic ending with a die on it, showcasing that it's in the void.
Do you think if like a scam player won one of our showdowns, they would get like a void,
Ooh.
like a void token made? There isn't even really that isn't a token that exists, right?
But neither does like a Storm counter, but those are like a fun thing to get.
Oh, absolutely. Raja got a on the adventure token for his.
Right. If I was a diehard scam player and I wanted to get a token that's good for scam, I would get an evoke trigger token. So that when you play your evoke creature out, you could use the creature as its own effect and then use an evoke trigger token to best showcase a stack for your opponent.
Sure, yeah.
And it could be you just like being all on fire and fury and griefing or whatever.
Yeah, I like some players, like with the One Ring, they're making tokens of stuff that doesn't technically have a token. So like these protection from everything tokens are very cute.
I highly recommend, right, if you can get one custom made, but even just get one of those blank tokens and just write protection from everything. It truly helps you to remember and your opponent to remember. And the clearer the board state, the better the game.
Absolutely. Communication is a vital skill in any game of Magic.
In life.
In life, yeah.
Absolutely.
All aspects.
As we see a Solitude taking care of an Omnath that David had taken using that Dothy Voidwalker. It never feels good to have to use your card to answer your own card that your opponent took from you. And Lightning Bolt number 2, just David's back.
Oh boy, and Jovan's down to a single Lightning Bolt worth of life as well.
Right, yeah, we can see this 19-3 for these life totals. And this Grief just chunking in, and that's the game for David. Just the aggression and interaction of this scam deck. Some people were saying that in this Lord of the Rings meta, how is this deck going to keep up with people generating such value? And it's speed, right? Just putting a threat into play and interacting 1, 2, 3. Scam's been winning a lot lately, even though not gaining a lot from the format, but just being well positioned in the format as a whole.
And the market responding as well. Dakota and I looked at the cost of Griefs yesterday, and that has shot up as well with the popularity of Scam rising.
Great. I mean, that's good news for the Scam players, right? Like, sometimes you're in the right place at the right time, and it's nice to see that your deck rising in power as well as rising in popularity because you feel smart. You made the good choice. You're the Scam player, and now maybe it's a good time to play Scam. So let's check out these sideboards and see what he's working with in this Scam deck.
Yeah, this is just a stock list we grabbed from Goldfish. Note there, it's not David's exact 75, but I think besides the Lightning Bolts is playing a pretty stock list.
Right. The important part is wondering if they are playing these Orcish Bowmasters, right? The new toy, the one toy that Rakdos Scam did get out of this set in Lord of the Rings and Orcish Bowmasters is big just for interacting earlier on the curve, right? Just a 2-mana threat is going to be infinitely more powerful than a 3 or a 4-mana threat. So you find Scam just finding the area and the ability to just trim down on that mana curve. But in this matchup against a like greedy 4 or 5 color mana base, we can see in the stock list there on that bottom right corner is Blood Moon. And David, I'm pretty sure, doesn't leave with his Scam deck without Moon effects in it.
Oh, yeah.
We've been debating a lot between the power of Magus of the Moon versus Blood Moon. And I think it might be Magus of the Moon's time to shine. So many players out there have Besajus and a lot of cards that like interact very favorably with an enchantment permanent. And people are having less and less creature interaction for a card like Magus of the Moon. So it'll be interesting to see where David's at on the split today, if they bring it in, what effect it has on the game. But I would most likely expect for sure out of that scam opponent to bring in some amount of moon effects for this greedy mana.
Absolutely. Do we have an example deck list for Jovan? No. We're going to talk real quick about our Discord, though. Check out that QR code in the bottom right, and that'll get you right to our series Discord. That's where we put out our announcement this morning for our updated Team Trios event. That's where you can get discussion. That's where you can find teammates for our Team Trios event. We had a lot of people looking for legacy players for St. Louis, a lot of lonesome legacy players looking for teammates, and we had a lot of people able to find teammates for that event. Or if you're just looking for deck list discussion, if you're coming away, we had some people step away from Magic and come back to Magic to start at our events, and they're like, hey, like I used to play Legacy. Is my deck still relevant? Or hey, I'm looking to try out a new format. What should I play? This is the sort of style that I like. Can you guys help me work with that? And of course, if you're looking for singles, head on over to nerdedgegaming.com and buy some cards from us. We're listing new cards every day. We have a rewards program. We have a wish list feature, and we have tens of thousands of cards from you to peruse. So head on over there and get shopping.
We're surrounded in cards back here. Please.
Oh gosh, I have so many on my desk. Get them off of there.
Yeah, as we see, it looks like David here is taking a quick mulligan as Jovan seems to be cycling through a hand of 7.
Mm-hmm.
I like what Jovan's deck is doing. Just, I believe this is the Samantha Murphy NBC no bad cards, right? And it's incredible in the modern format because there aren't a lot of bad cards coming to the surface anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So many of these decks basically get to choose no bad cards, just which good cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have sort of your pick of the litter.
Yeah, so, we've seen these 4-color control-ish ring strategies just out of the plethora of players that we have here in the room. There's a blue-white ring player, there's a 4-color Omnath player, there's a 4-color control player, and we have the Jovan here with this blue-white control variant. Just 4 different takes on ring plus interaction. Just really pulling together that while there's a lot of different versions of it, people are having different cards to supplement that ring strategy.
Mm-hmm.
No bad cards, but figuring out which good ones.
Absolutely, yeah, and I like that. Each player can sort of find like sort of their not quite pet cards, but stuff that fits their play style more so than other players.
Right, like I know Jovan, I believe, was playing Murktide and then was playing the Jeskai Breach strategy, and is now playing this 4-color version, which hasn't typically been playing Expressive Iteration, but Jovan just couldn't leave home without them and has their Expressive Iterations ready to go.
Mm-hmm. All right, slower start here for David. No turn 1 grief for him.
Right.
Sorry, excuse me, Ragavan.
Right, no Ragavan, no grief, no fury. And out of Jovan, we can see that they declared the Kahira once again.
Mm-hmm.
So no sneaky sideboard cards, no Elish Norn or something to be a real hammer for this matchup. We're still on the same plan as we were on game 1.
I always forget that is a neat little trick that you can do. You can, like, quote unquote, make your deck illegal for your companion, and just
yeah.
tuck it into your sideboard.
Yeah, there's always weird ways to do it. I remember at NRG St. Louis playing against a Yorion player, and Yorion's one of the few companions that you can't undo its restriction, right? You have to play 80 cards whether you want to or not. And even if you go over, you're playing 81, you still meet Yorion criteria. But if you're playing Gigantha, you might board in something with multiple costs, or Kahira, you might board in something that doesn't meet its creature type restrictions, as we see a Renin 6 here for Jovan.
Oh, and using the Planeswalker dice there. I don't think I've seen anyone actually utilize it for a Planeswalker yet.
Hey, it's perfect. It's out there because we needed so many dice for Alex Luke in round 1. Might as well put them to good use here for the Planeswalkers.
I don't think you can board out 15 cards, right? Because your sideboard has to be exactly 15, correct?
Correct. So if you start with a Yorion deck with 80 cards and 15 in your sideboard, you'd never be able to dip below 80. What you would have to do is play 80 with a 0-card sideboard and board out a whole bunch of your deck. But that's wild.
Oh, it's
strategy.
old rules that you had to have 15 in your sideboard, right?
You must always have... You can never have more than 15 in your sideboard. So
but it can be less?
It can be less. It can always be less. You can board up, like say you're playing against Mill. Some people will bring in more cards than they take out, and their sideboard might be like 11 cards after the fact.
Oh, for sure.
But you can never put more than 15 into the sideboard. So if you register a legal 80-card and 15-card deck, you'd always meet it.
It was an old rule, though, that your sideboard had to be 15 cards, though, right? So, like, some people registered, like, 15 basic islands, I believe.
Oh, that's so wild.
At one point.
Just to make sure you can legally play a deck.
Yeah. Or
Again, Magic has lessened restrictions that are less intuitive over time
mhm.
to allow for the best player experience. As we see David here doing what Scam does second best, which is a Fury with an Undying effect. If you can't grief him, you might as well beat him down.
You think grief is a scammed grief is better than a scammed fury?
So if I can have a 4/4 double striker or a 4-power menace that took 2 cards from your hand,
That's fair.
I'm very
Yeah.
incentivized to take the 2 cards from your hand, especially against an opponent that might have Solitude, March of Otherworldly Light, Leyline Bindings. They might just have a clear answer for your Fury, and nothing will happen. But if you grief, you've taken those cards away, and once they interact at that point. And we see, again, one of those answers in Celestial Purge out of Yovan's sideboard, just
Ooh.
really making sure they can deal with these threats out of Scam. But still, David Dragoman gets to connect, revealing this sketch. Dress down.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I might have mentioned this before. The showcase Modern Horizons do have the artist direction in the flavor
I
text.
love that flavor text so much.
I actually learned recently because I saw it on. Oh, I don't remember the card, but in the flavor text, name dropped Asmo as Asmore. They shortened it with the
Oh,
R at
interesting.
the
They
end.
shortened it differently.
Yeah, so I thought that was neat.
And here we have David resolving a Dothy Voidwalker, a card that when people were updating Scam with Orcish Bowmasters, they took Dothys out, and now the lists have found a way to fit Bowmaster and Dothy, both just being incredibly important threats for this deck, that instead of cutting one in favor of the other, they're playing both nowadays.
Jovan taking a second to think here. He's got a grip full of cards.
It's either Omnath or the Ring, and it's Omnath.
There we are.
Contemplated David. Just usually doesn't have that much interaction that you can do for stuff like this out of Scam, but always takes a moment to think, let you draw that card, debate about it. David might be planning what's his plan of attack to get rid of this Omnath. As we said before, we're up to 4 mana. This is hard cast Grief territory. Oh, David with a Turok. He said he loves this card in the 4-color matchup. And it's being met with a Subtlety.
Pitching another dress down.
You can imagine this Turok, right? It has pro white. The biggest removal spells in the format right now are Leyline Binding and Prismatic Ending.
And
Cannot
Solitude.
touch Turok. In Solitude, right? None of those can touch this Turok. Jovan boarded in these Celestial Purges. None of those can touch this Turok. And then if they get to a situation where they can kick it, which they had tried to do there through this Subtlety, Jovan would have also discarded 2 cards and grown this into a massive threat.
Yeah, I haven't seen Turok played in a while. I really only watch modern content for
Right.
our streams, so I'm glad we got to see it here from David.
Yeah, and David, our lone Scam player in the room, but does really like these Turok effects against these greedy 4-color white-based removal decks.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, and just the hand disruption is fantastic as well.
Right, like, I imagine one of the only answers out of Jovan would be if they had Fury, and if they had brought Fury in, and then if they were able to get a Fury to target that, is one of the few ways that they could be able to remove that. Outside of an unkicked Turok being hit with a Renin 6 minus.
Oh gosh, I get
They are so small, the points of interaction to get a Turok once it resolves. So Jovan here did have that Subtlety to take care of it for a moment, but I imagine it'll be back soon.
I think so.
And again, Jovan is playing a controlling version, so they may have interactions in the form of counterspells or Reprieve, the new card that we're very high on from last round. They may definitely have points of interaction for this Turok, and might just be looking for the right one. Maybe use Subtlety to put it away for a problem for later, but later is sneaking up quickly.
Oh, and here comes down a Teferi on the board for Jovan.
Another card that cannot target Turok.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Wow, it's really relevant, yeah.
These like 4-color based decks are truly white at their core. Like a lot of the cards that they have to interact and play the game have white in them somewhere. So a pro white card is unbelievable. We see someone in chat also talking, one of the answers Jovan could have is having a dress down so that there's no abilities on the Turok, so it loses the pro white, which would allow us to be able to maybe binding or prismatic ending it. A great thought out of chat and a great combination if Jovan can find that as well.
Dress down just has so many use cases.
And I forget about it and then always get blown out by it.
Absolutely.
We've got this Leyline Binding coming into play. Interesting what we're going to do with this pro white card.
Oh.
What Jovan might be doing here is playing out the binding just to put it into play so that we don't have to discard it to have it available later to pick up with our Teferis.
Oh, interesting.
Something that I may not have thought of, but something a seasoned Magic player who's really thinking of the late game, in a control game like this, to put that binding out there with no target to have it available for later.
Yeah, because as we've seen, David has a ton of hand disruption in his deck.
Yeah, and that Turok was forcing you to discard, so you might as well play it out and tuck it away for later.
Does it have recurable hand disruption, or it's just on the cast?
It's on the
right.
cast, right.
But he knew
But
it was in his hand because
right.
it had been bounced.
So we played the binding in response so that it didn't get taken away, and now we see Thoughtseize here. We know Jovan picked up the Kahira, so the choice is between that Kahira or the one single card they have left in hand after, which is a Leyline Binding. We have this pro-white threat.
Yep.
So the question is, do we have follow-up threats that we don't want to get binding, or do we want to get this Kahira to lower Jovan's clock? And it looks to be we're taking this Kahira from them, leaving them with the Leyline Binding in hand.
And life total's about even here at 12 and 11.
Yeah, and we know Jovan's hand isn't a land, and we don't have any available fetches, so this Omnath doesn't currently have a source of life gain, as David hardcasts this Ragavan. There's a few blockers for it, and we know this binding's going to eat it up. But now the binding's used.
Sure, yeah. Both players appear to be completely cardless here.
Yeah.
Hellbent.
We know
in top deck mode.
Yeah, Jovan's going to take up this Teferi, so next turn, if we're willing to risk it, could draw a card and bounce our binding. Oh, we have a new Teferi.
Oh, boy.
And this one may bounce our binding to save this for later. Yeah. This is
like
why
it.
we played it out, is to have this available to us in the future. And we're at the future.
It's incredible to me the skill that we see week in and week out here amongst our players. These are lines of play that I would not see, but they have put in the time and they know what they're doing with the cards in their deck.
They are playing at NRG series level here on Wednesdays on a weekly basis.
It's incredible because this is my LGS, right? I didn't know that I was playing against really good people all the time, and I was just holding myself to like way too high a standard. And then I went to play at other LGSs. I was like, wait a second, am I good at Magic?
I mean, as a lot of us on the series will say, you got to play against the best to be the best, got to beat the best. But if you talk to a lot of players on the series right now, a lot of us are looking to like grow together, right? Just become unbelievable players to play against the best at the best events.
Grow the game, grow the player base, just have a good time, get that gathering.
As we see David here getting a Castle Lochthwain, one of their fuel value engines to kind of start drawing up cards. But we're looking
besides Seasoned Pyromancer, of course.
yeah, the number one card in the scam. But we see Jovan here with two large threats that are kind of locked down by this Turok, and a Teferi, a binding that took away the Dothy Voidwalker, and we're quickly tapping 4 mana, 5 for Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. A card that makes a lot of waves in Pioneer and used to be strong here in the modern format, but Jovan just cannot let it go and is here to show you the power of it today. Plussing it to draw a card, and at our end step, we'll untap 2 lands.
Yeah, let's get that card up on screen real quick here.
If you play Pioneer and you've played against the Blue-White Control deck in that format, or the Blue-White Lotus deck in that format, they're putting this card to a lot of good use right now. But Jovan's going to try to use it to bury David.
I don't have a lot of kind things to say about Teferi, so I'll just keep quiet.
Hey, it's okay. The Terminate coming after this Omnath. Trying to pick away, and there's the Blood Moon.
Late
Far
Blood
too
Moon.
late.
Yeah, late Blood Moon there. He's
Jovan
already done a lot with that mana.
Right, and Jovan has a Plains and an Island in play.
Yeah, so Blood Moon, very, very protected, insulated from that Blood Moon effect.
Right. They have, red mana, Plains, and an Island to work with, but a lot of their answers, a Prismatic ending for 3 can be done here, a Leyline Binding for lots could be done here. It would only cost 3. It'd be an Oblivion ring, no problem. But this Blood Moon is just 10 turns too late.
Approximately.
Right, and we might be approaching should we scoop territory, right? We have to play a third game of this matchup still. We might be reaching the point where it might be difficult for David to claw back into this game. We may want to give ourselves the most time to play our game 3.
Yeah, and another land there off the top is not going to help.
Right. Importantly, though, we're going to play it out before activating our castle so we can take less damage. But we can't sit around behind this Turok for much longer. There aren't many answers in Jovan's deck, but Jovan is very quickly approaching just overwhelming what David has. We can't just have this one Turok. This thinking look.
Yeah.
Oh no, David with the scowl and the shake of the head. It's okay, remember, you've got a third game if this one doesn't quite go your way.
And Scam's a fast deck. You don't need as much time as, say, like Landry did last round. to
Yeah.
claw back.
We're using our turn here with this pro white creature to punch down this Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, just to get counters taken off of it, because over 2 turns we can deal with it. So now the question is Jovan going to take this opportunity to attack with our Solitude while we have the chance?
And someone in chat just mentioned he can't even Castle Lockthwain. The Blood Moon unfortunately turns it off. So
Oh my
doesn't even
goodness.
have that available. Oh,
And here's that Celestial Purge.
now he does.
Interesting here that Jovan does that, because it locks on that castle, the Blood Moon might have actually been better in play for Jovan than it was in play for David. But if we're incentivized like slam an Omnath here,
Sure,
then it's
yeah.
worth unlocking our mana.
I would say so. There's Celestial Purge for y'all.
Yeah, that Jovan's brought in that's been used. We had at least 2 of them we played this game. So either realizing that there's just tons of cards that this targets, or we might be bringing them today to target specifically if we play against a scam opponent. Maybe tired of losing to all the scam hiding out there.
This is a board state that a lot of players have stared down just too often. It's quickly getting out of hand for David here. Just lots of different game pieces for Jovan to play around with and sort of lock him out of the game here.
I'm kind of falling in love with this Celestial Purge.
Yeah.
It answers Omnath, it answers Blood Moons, it answers Bowmasters, answers Dothies. A lot of threats in the format that this blue-white control deck might worry about can be answered by the Purge. The fact that you can have an answer to both Blood Moon and Omnath hidden in one card seems definitely worth the sideboard slots here out of Jovan and being put to great use here against Rakdos Scamp.
David drew a card at Jovan's end step.
Another moon.
Yeah, so he does have one more card in hand now, because he drew for turn, of course.
Yeah, interestingly,
didn't activate the Lockthwain before playing the Blood Moon.
We wouldn't have been able to do both unless we had drawn another land, which isn't a favorable
Oh,
situation.
right, because of the mana, yeah. Number of lands.
But yeah, you can.
Yeah.
Again, this moon might be better for Jovan in this situation. It's hard because you bring a sideboard card in, right? You must believe it has to be good in the matchup. But then the question is it also good in the scenario when you draw it? And it is interesting that it might be worse for David in the situation, but he's got so few cards to work with. You're just doing what you can in the matchup. And we see Jovan here just using an activation Teferi to bounce that Blood Moon to unlock our mana again. Playing a Renin 6.
Got 3 Planeswalkers out for Jovan now.
Oh, yeah. As I was saying before, I would advise David the Strangle from Jovan's deck here is really, really tightening. And how much do you want to suffer through this game before you go to game 3?
Yeah.
You had your opponent down to 3. They're up to 23. We were in bolt range at one point, but I think we've just truly surpassed that time. And now we've got the Omnath engine going. The Teferis are high-fiving across timeline. The Renin 6, the Solitude. There's just so much. And we can't sit behind this Turok. Our opponent's at 22 now.
Yeah, I mean, Jovan hasn't been swinging, but he doesn't really need to. He can take his time here. And, well, I mean, I guess he can't really take his time either. He also has to win a game too here.
Right. Like, it incentivizes Jovan to take quick actions and put this game away. But David needs to understand that a third game definitely needs to be played. You know, Scam's good. Scam can claw into games. We've watched David claw back into a lot of games, but it might not be into this game.
Yeah, I am. I'm looking at the clock here. I think it got started a little late.
Yeah,
so I'm
our
not
clock
sure.
is very wrong, but it is okay. We'll figure it out soon. We are using that big Teferi, untapping our lands. Just so much mana at our disposal. David, draw this card. Let's see. Are we getting back into it? We are thinking. Yeah, the only thing that'd be even helpful might be another Turok, but they're legendary. We'd only just have one to work with. We're just truly bottlenecked against Jovan having 25 permanents in play right now. Oh, yep.
A hard cast to Grief here.
I would love if this is a Grief. Check out your hand and then concede. Just get as much info as you can and then leave the game. Oh, the Veil of Summer. Jeez Louise. Instead of losing a card, Jovan's going to draw a card.
Oh, goodness.
David. It might be time to leave the party, buddy.
He's determined.
You know
Take
what?
out that Teferi. Yeah, it's got pro white. He can't block.
I know David watched back the stream from last week. He was happy that we had very kind things to say about him.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we talked about the Reed Duke style of never conceding, and I feel like I might have gotten David's head.
Oh no. Yeah, sometimes you don't want to play it out. There are cases, and I think this might be one of them.
Yeah, I've entered the phase of my life that when I'm in a game like this, I sometimes say, I'm sorry, but I don't want to play anymore, and just kind of scoop it up in scenarios like this, especially knowing that you have a game 3 to go to. We are just searching for a land, getting our Omnath triggers.
And we're gonna go get a quick look at what the actual time on the clock is here.
Yep, we're just going to have the most information for y'all at home to figure out how much
Mhm.
game there is still to be played here among these players. Oh, now we have a supreme verdict out of Jovan. Is this it, David? Is this the moment? It's very interesting because Jovan needed this Omnath and this Solitude to actually put the game away if
Yeah, it's
David's not
interesting.
scooping,
Mm-hmm.
but feels that it's worth playing out this verdict instead of trying to rumble in with these creatures.
Yeah, it's where you didn't swing first, at least.
Oh, now we have the Undying Malice on the Turok doing the scam thing. We probably had this card just sitting in hand for so long, and now this is going to allow one creature to come back from the verdict. But there's a Teferi in play. We can't cast the spell. Good check by Jovan there. Unfortunately, gaining a little information about David's hand and about this game.
Mm-hmm. All right.
It looked cool, but Teferi says no.
No, sorry. Fun police. Hello. Nope, you can't do that.
Teferi is maybe my favorite card to play with and one of my least favorite to play against. It is unbelievably powerful to have that static effect in play while you're playing your games, but it is also incredibly frustrating when your opponent has it. And I know that Renin 6 and Teferi are in David's top 2 least favorite cards.
They do a lot of work against him, yeah.
Yep. I believe his top 4 most hated cards are Renin 6, Teferi, Narset, and Karn the Great Creator.
Oh gosh, yeah. Just 4 planeswalkers.
Which I just believe are 4 cards that are really good against Scam.
Yeah.
As we see this Blood Moon trying again. One last try.
All right, so we have 60 minutes left in the round, and I believe 20 minutes for our feature match here. So they do have that much time to complete a game 3. As we assume, Jovan is going to win game 2 here.
But we don't know. David's using this Lightning Bolt, taking this Teferi off the table. I think Jovan was not supposed to cast that Supreme Verdict.
Yeah.
It put them at pretty close to parity here. And now we see a Boseiju hitting this Blood Moon, allowing David to get more mana. And now we have this castle unlocked to start getting some cards. But it does look like Jovan has like 7 cards in hand still, though.
Yeah. He does have a lot, and he's got he can recur and thin his deck more with the Renin 6 and fetch lands. He's got so much life to work with. He doesn't care about fetching at all.
Yeah. It's hard. Jovan needs to put this game away.
Yeah, it's on him to end it. So
yeah, absolutely. As we see, a plan is happening here. If we picked up our Boseiju, we might be just using Boseiju and Renin 6, maybe trying to hit David's castle, just to run him out of relevant lands in play.
Sure.
But it looks like we didn't do that while David was tapped out. David will have a chance to use their castle if they want to here. David's planning something. We see these Blood Crypt moved off to the side. A Terminate for the Solitude, met with a Veil of Summer.
And
Just
another draw.
Yeah, Jovan just has so many cards that it's hard for David to 1-for-1 interact somebody with 6 cards in hand.
All right, David will go to 5 here with the Castle Lock Thwain activation.
Yep. Didn't play our Lamp Return, playing this beautiful Rakdos Mountain out.
Hard cast a Subtlety.
And that's lethal in play now.
And there it is. All right, finally
Jovan ticked away, chunked away at David, but finally was able to complete that game. And it looks like we'll definitely have enough time to get this game 3. And like you said, doesn't take long for Scam to play a game, so it'll be up to Jovan to fight back against the early onslaught of the Scam plan to make it to that late game that they're looking for.
Yeah, David will be on the play here, which is definitely puts him in favor. But while we're waiting for them to shuffle up here, let's take a look at our buy-sell trade ad. Hey, friends, I told you before, I'll tell you again. If you're building a deck or you need some sideboard cards for your upcoming RCQ, head on over to nerdragegaming.com and pick up some singles. We have a fantastic loyalty program, rewards program. The more you spend, the more you save. As soon as your first purchase, you get 1% back, all the way up to 10% with cumulative support of our website. And yeah. Uh,
I did recently use the buy to buy Cyborg Crumble to Dust
oh, yeah.
because it is so hard to play against Tron out there. And the worst part, I will say, is myself and Kat had recently played Tron in a couple of the Nerd Rage tournaments, and it is getting more popular over time with the One Ring.
Mhm.
At an event over the weekend, I lost to my exact 75 that one of my friends was playing.
Ooh.
And it's just like so hard. You create the menace that I had to show up with some Crumble to Dust just
Mhm.
to try to fight back, and still got Troned out of that game.
I'll also mention that we do have Commander Masters pre-orders up on our site. It's a fantastic new set that's coming out the first weekend of August. So get your pre-orders in now and pick up that product. On August 4th, I believe, is the release.
Yeah, it's fast approaching, and it looks so cool.
Yes, the
Also,
4th.
did you see that it just gave tons of really beautiful full art cards for Hammer Time players?
Yes, I saw it. It's got Pure Steel and Steel Shapers. Oh, it makes me want to play the deck again.
I was like, hold up, someone out there loves Hammer Time, so they got two beautiful versions of cards. As we see David not scamming on turn 1 here, not Ragavanning on turn 1 here. Hopefully we have a really good turn 2.
Did you see if he kept a full 7?
I think so, because we rushed into this game here.
Yeah.
We were just talking about Commander Masters.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
there are beautiful full arts in that
oh,
set.
yes, and of course all the cool profiles.
Oh, yeah, are you a fan of the profiles?
Yeah, we got like Zakama. I saw you shout out the
The
Macias.
Macias is unbelievable.
That is beautiful. Dude, the Urza is hot. I
Yeah.
love that card.
Matt Hausler, who, friend of the stream, friend of our socials and everything, was
Mhm.
talking about getting a Magic themed tattoo sleeve when that Macias came out.
Oh my goodness,
And
that
there's
would
a
look so nice.
There's a non-zero chance we may have matching Macias tattoos. It is
Absolutely.
unbelievable.
Oh, that art translates so well to
Right.
tattoo. Oh my goodness.
And here we have David doing a play that I love out of Scam, which is playing a Dothy and then playing a hand hate spell and putting the card you take under your Dothy to save for later. So we have them first playing out their Dothy and now using the Grief. We're going to take a Fury, tuck the Fury away into the Void under this Dothy Voidwalker. So this Voidwalker later on in turns after this is tap cast a Fury. So not only was Fury a card that David doesn't want to play against, but now it's a card they get to play with.
Mm-hmm.
So now they have a 5th Fury, if you think about it.
And a card David is sure familiar with playing.
Yeah,
is the
David is very
Fury.
familiar with resolving the effects of a Fury.
Can't see anything but a Gorillaz album. What's wrong with that?
No, yeah, all the profiles do look like that Gorillaz album of all of them in the
Yes,
side profile.
The four-celled, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, pick your 4 favorite profiles and make your own Gorilla album at home.
I love it. I would pick. Dan was trash
goodbye,
talking
Dothy.
the Morophon art. I think that one is so cool. Everyone thinks
No,
it's gross.
The Morphon will haunt my nightmares.
It's so awesome. What are you talking about? I guess it's me. I've talked about liking like the gross little guys in Magic.
He is a gross little guy. I mean, I'm with you on gross little guys, but this is a gross big guy.
He is a gross big guy.
As we see, just Jovan using the Celestial Purge, getting that Dothy out of here so that Fury plan no longer available. Just, unfortunately, this is where a control player wants to be. Just interacting just enough to keep you on edge. But David, on the play, on turn 3, resolves this Blood Moon. And Jovan now has a very fancy mountain and a plains in play. Needs another Celestial Purge to stay in this game, but just used one on that Dothy Voidwalker.
Yeah, I believe he probably only runs 2 in his sideboard. So
Yeah,
he's
we
looking
saw
for a
2
1-of
in-
in his deck.
I can't imagine having more than 2 purges, but Jovan may be targeting things very specifically, knowing what they're after.
Oh boy, and we get so a little insulation against the Celestial Purge here.
A little column A and a little column B, an enchantment Blood Moon and the creature Blood Moon.
And a little bit of a beat down here too.
It's the 2/2.
Yeah. It can turn sideways.
And David purposely has his 2 swamps out. Every card in their deck's going to be castable besides a kicked Turok. But now we have this dashed Ragavan alongside this Magus of the Moon going to work. Jovan showing another different exile zone. Because the
Exactly.
Dothy exile is different than Exile, which is different than the Ragavan exile.
Oh goodness.
But you can see Jovan doing the real quick flick through their hand. Just a Magic player hoping to do a magic trick and turn those cards into different cards. Just
Yeah.
trying to figure out how they're going to stay in this game.
Here comes that Ragavan again.
Because I imagine, subtlety is good just to get this Ragavan tucked away for later. We
Sure.
probably need a Solitude to answer this Magus, but then how do we answer the Blood Moon? One was not enough in game 2, but both of them might be enough here for David in game 3, as we see Jovan with their 6th land and just not having any interaction for what's going on.
Yeah, couldn't he have just redashed the Ragavan a second time last turn?
The Solitude put it on top of David's deck, so
Oh,
instead of putting it
excuse
back
me.
to hand,
Right.
it kind of does a little baby time walk and forcing your opponent to draw that card again next turn if they would like. And here we see a Teferi being flipped, and David has 2 treasures. So if David wants, we can cash in both these treasures for Jovan's Teferi, and Teferi is the best card in control and the best card against control. So I would highly recommend for David here to take this Teferi. I feel like if I'm a scam player and I reveal a Teferi or a Renin 6 from my opponent, I'm snap casting those. They're unbelievably powerful cards that get even better in your blue-red 1-for-1 deck to get these cards that give you tons of card advantage. But it looks like we might be passing up on the ability to Teferi, and we did pass it up.
Jovan just passing back and forth with David here. He could have put Kahira in hand at some points. Maybe.
Oh, you're right.
didn't
Might
think
just
to
be
do
in some
that.
frustration level.
I think so.
It's so hard to be trapped under a Blood Moon. You
Yeah.
just forget about your little guy over there.
Not that it would be. I mean, can he cast it? I know
We
he
just
had
have the
one
one
planes.
planes.
Yeah.
We can cast this Leyline Binding for 1 billion, though. Because we have a plains and all of our lands are mountain, Leyline Binding costs 4, and we have access to the 1 white source. So we're going to use this first one to answer the Magus of the Moon. And now we just need to, we're unapplying a little bit of the threat, right, that the Magus was. And now we just need to figure out an answer to this Blood Moon. David, please cast this big Teferi. We revealed the Teferi Hero of Dominaria. We didn't take the baby one, but now we can take the big one. Can you imagine if a scam opponent took Teferi 3 and Teferi 5?
Oh, gosh.
But here we're just going to take the big
I think
Teferi.
1 is enough. I think 1 is pretty good.
Yeah, but I want both. I want my cake and eat it. David has Blood Moon in play and has cast their opponent's Teferi Hero of Dominaria. And if we really want, we could use the down tick to tuck this Leyline Binding deep in Jovan's deck and get our Magus back. But instead, we're going to use this as a card draw engine and untap 2 of our lands for our interactive spells. Teferi, really interesting, gives you the card right away, but the mana later. So a card that interacts really well with you playing counter magic, right? You can draw the card now, but then have mana for the counter magic on your opponent's turn. But here for David, it's just going to be plus draw a card every turn. In a deck that's usually really light on resources, this is a way to gain them all back.
I saw Jovan, I think, take a quick view of the camera there. He's just, sort of a feels bad kind of game 3 here for him after he did such a good job in game 2.
Remember, Blood Moon voted into the format by the Magic the Gathering community. And we just see Jovan defeatedly dropping their hand into play, showing them all the cool cards that they could have played, and scooping it on up 2 games to 1 to the Rakdos scam and the Blood Moon sideboard plan.
No bad cards for Jovan there, but a really good card for David. Can't cast any of those good cards. And so I'll take it down in 3 there. Let's take a look at our weekly schedule real quick. Tonight, of course, is Modern. We got a slew of different events for you to check out. We will be live tomorrow with our Pokemon stream. And our Commander night as well. I mentioned earlier we have a Commander appreciation party in the works, so keep an eye on our socials for that.
Yeah, I'll be there if you guys want to play Commander with a seasoned Modern player.
Who's your Commander?
Okay, so my signature Commanders right now are Mono Black Gonti, and then I have Atraxa Grand Unifier Gates, which has been my Commander deck since day 1.
Interesting.
I had unfortunately, Child of Alara Gates deck because I started playing in Return to Ravnica, and then Golos was the perfect card, and then something happened to Golo.
Oh, no. Something called the Banhammer.
Yeah, they died to the Banhammer, but now there's so many Gates being printed that I can use Atraxa Grand Unifier and just play a really, 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 really good card as my commander. And tons of other ones, but come on out and play against me, and you'll see them.
Come check out. We got a slew of different events for you there. I'm going to just let you take that in with your eyeballs because I just trip over my words real hard when I talk about our schedule. But we got a bunch of different events for you. We got a slew of different Magic events. We got Digimon. We got One Piece. We got Pokemon. All good events for you there. Why don't we take a look at another ad real quick here? Or no? Okay. Apologies. We are going to commercial. We'll be right back with our round 4. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
It's the final round here of Wednesday Night Modern. We got Brian and Archie back for you in the
Ooh,
finals.
a quick little show just
Oh,
for y'all at home.
goodness.
Um,
Oh, gosh.
we have the battle of people that we've seen on coverage so far today. We've got Archie battling it out 2-1 with this Hollow One strategy against Brian, 2-1 on this blue-white ring strategy. Archie started the day as our anti-ring player. Brian's been killing it the last few weeks as one of our ring players, and now we're here to battle it out. Flameblade Adept coming in, prepared to give Brian the beatdowns.
We'll see. We'll see what kind of tools he brings in to deal with it.
I believe in Archie's hand I see an Ox of Agonis.
Ooh, I like that card a lot.
And looks like we're starting our turn here with cycling a Street Wraith. Important part about cycling, you do discard as a part of the cost. So this Flameblade Adept, you can see this one die here. It's starting to pump up its power on this turn. Coming in for 2 points of damage.
I used to play a one of Ox of Agonis in my blue-red prowess. Do you remember Stormwing Entity?
Oh, yeah, that card was really cool.
Yeah, and then Murktide Regent got printed,
Oh,
and
yeah,
everyone
poor
forgot about
Stormwing.
it.
As we see, Archie here is trying to go for an Asmo, met with a counterspell, but had the cookbook anyways and slamming that down as the follow-up play. Again, really important part with the Street Wraith in this deck. It is a discard as a cost, triggering Flameblade Adept and turning on Asmo's ability to be cast. We see Brian here with a Teferi being met with a cookbook activation into Madness in Rootwalla before this Teferi is able to resolve.
Wow, nicely done there.
And now we see Brian. Looks like we're ticking down. Probably going to remove something on Archie's board. Maybe one of these aggressive threats like the Flameblade Adept.
I would think so, yeah.
But this is very different than the matches we've seen Brian play before. Archie is here to kill and to kill quickly. It is not going to give a lot of time to this controlling strategy. And the thing Control always needs is time, and Archie's here to take that away from them.
Yeah, Archie spent a lot of time not doing a whole lot on camera for us round one because Alex sort of ate up a lot of the game actions.
But Archie took home that W, so who's the real winner?
That's very fair. That's very fair.
As we see that Flameblade Adept being replayed, a second cookbook being played out, and the turn going back to Brian. And we're just slamming the ring, right? Get this protection as early as we can and start our draw engine going. Oh, there's Brian revealing
There's
the tattoo.
The tip of the tattoo. I think we mentioned it earlier. He does have that
I think
ring
he has the
inscription.
ring inscription around his arm. It's just so cool.
Very nice double band there for him.
Brian just being a cool dad.
Yeah, right?
Plays Magic and has a Lord of the Rings tattoo and is 2-1 at Wednesday Night Modern.
Dude, he said he considered asking his wife to bring the baby to bring on stream too.
The baby can be on stream anytime they want, as long as they win and cast an Omnath.
Yes, he said the baby does spend a lot of time screaming right now.
Me too. I get it.
Mine is done internally, typically.
I'm always so jealous of babies when you're like in a public place and they just get to screech because they don't like something, and you're like, same, buddy, same.
Yeah, mood.
If I was on a plane, I would scream too. I can't blame a child for it.
Yeah, my ears hurt, man.
And here we see this prismatic ending taking out the Flameblade Adept. If Brian can just stem the bleeding and all these threats, we can sit behind this ring for a long time.
Sure.
And we can use our Teferi and bounce the ring and replay it and gain the protection again. We are already inching ever so closely to Archie, maybe not dealing much damage for the rest of these games. But we see here an important use. If you are a control style strategy opponent, you see Archie here attacked. Brian wasn't going to do anything. Archie activated to use his mana to pump up the Rootwalla, and now Brian's going to respond. If you're in these situations where you can have your opponent spend their mana before you interact, it's always worthwhile, right? If you take 1 point of damage, not a problem. But instead here, instead of taking that 1 point, your opponent was incentivized to use their ability and use their mana, and now that your Leyline Binding also ate 1 mana along the way.
Yeah, part of being a control player is being patient, not, you are a reactive deck, but sometimes you don't want to react too soon.
Right. I think if you want to learn that lesson really quickly, play against an Infect opponent.
Oh, yeah.
It is very easy to try to fire off your removal, and then they can respond with hexproof stuff. But if you just say, no block, no effect, and either they just sneak in and deal like a point, or they try to do something, and then you can interact. And then you get the 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s out of your opponents, which is a good spot for learning those sort of styles of interaction and when the best times are. You have to remember that as a control player or even a Magic player in general, Your life total is a resource. You can always take a point here, a point there, just to understand each little moment and realize that maybe stealing cards, stealing mana, stealing threats might be more important than taking a point or two here and there.
Sure, sure. So someone in chat saying, "Oh, it's Travis. What's up, man?" You say, "Oh
Disgruntled
man,
Elk in chat.
I was worried the game would end before turn 20. Good thing the ring is here."
Right, the ring is here. Don't worry, we'll only go to maybe team 15, maybe 18. But
We'll see.
Brian did draw literally their entire deck last week on stream, so we shall see about that.
Yeah, that man was exhausted at the end of the
Right.
night. He played a lot of Magic and drew a lot of cards.
And he has that screaming baby at home for Cool Dad mode.
Yeah.
And as we see, like I was saying a few turns ago, Brian's goal is to sit behind this ring and remove all of Archie's threats. And now we see two bindings with both their threats tucked away and the ring just drawing cards. Archie has very few cards, very few threats, and Brian is loading up.
Yeah. Archie's game plan is generally to take down Brian before he can really develop
Brian
his
needs
board
to have been
state.
dead already.
Yeah. And now Archie's kind of sitting in top deck mode here.
Archie's deck really strikes me as one that maybe should take a note from David and put lightning bolts back in their decks because
Hell yeah.
we could really use just some reach, some just 3-point throw 'em at Brian's face right now, just to try to inch closer to winning these games.
Oh, what's that? He's not on the black-red version, but there's that card that Adam plays in Pioneer. It's like a Madness discard. It's like Alms of the Vein or something.
Wow,
I think.
yeah, that's it's a like little baby
Yeah.
lightning helix that cares about madness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we need some sort of reach here because we've now seen this. Archie took down that first game that we saw them playing on stream, but this one they're getting just buried. This Teferi's picked up this ring, replayed this ring, and we are going deep into turns with Archie with one card in hand. We do have this Ox of Agonis in the graveyard, but we don't have the fuel for it. Brian has so many cards he is discarding down to hand size, choosing their perfect 7 and throwing the rest away. And again, this ring just got restarted by the Teferi, so our life total, while being at 7, isn't fully under the duress of the ring that was on 4 a few moments ago. When your opponent discards a counterspell and a removal spell, you know that their hand is just the rest of them.
Yeah, we saw a lot of this from Brian last week, just having the nuts in his hand. Yeah.
If my opponent discards a Force of Negation when tapped out, I'm done. That game's over. I only get to cast maybe 1 or 2 more spells this turn, and my opponent just telegraphed very, very blatantly to me that those spells aren't going to resolve.
All right, so what are we looking at for Archie then to get out of this game besides scooping?
I would love 2 lightning bolts. I would just love them. Brian's hand has to be another Force, some Solitudes, cards that are going to allow them to just like claw back in and not let Archie resolve those.
Oh goodness, and a Hall spells Doom for Archie as well.
Yeah, that adds a quick clock to what Archie has going on. Brian discarding down to hand size again, throwing it back to Archie. But now they're definitely under a clock. The duress of this Hall of the Storm Giants gonna clock in for, I believe, 8, and then another 8.
He doesn't
Is this
play
an 8?
duress. This is a blue-white deck.
Sorry, he's under a great distress and pressure, and you can see it on Archie's face, trying to claw back into this game.
Yeah. He's doing his best. An insolent neonate down on the field there.
You can see Brian just nodded so quickly. Yep. Sure. Oh, look, a target for the Solitude I've been waiting to cast. Well, let me remove that and put another aggressive threat into play that's going to gain me life to keep me safe from my ring. Archie here debating on activating in response, discarding the Wonder that's in their hand. That's right, I forgot. They play the Steam Vents in their deck to have an island so that Wonder in the graveyard gives their whole team flying. We don't currently have that island, but the Wonder is in the graveyard.
There it is.
Yeah, as long as this card is in your graveyard and you have an island, creatures you control have flying. This is from like a really cool older cycle, like Brawn and Filth and Wonder here. Anger, the Angry Baby, like giving all these effects out of the graveyard. Don't see a lot of play, but the Wonder is so cool out of this green-red deck. There's a couple of blue sources to turn on these Wonders.
I'm sorry, I just need to search up Anger real quick. What does Angry Baby mean?
Well, you got to look at one of the arts.
Okay, let me see here.
We're going to even try to bring it up on camera. Just something fun to look
Oh
at while this
my
slogfest is
god,
going
that's
on.
incredible. The Commander Anthology version.
Real Magic Boomers out there know that one of the versions of anger is truly unsettling.
Oh my goodness. I was not ready for that.
You
It's
can
an incredible art.
Yeah, you all can check that out at home. Let me know in chat if you find the angry baby out
Here,
there.
I think I can post. There we go.
Yeah, we see Brian at 9 life, sitting behind a Teferi and a Ring and a Kahira and the Sol. He can gain some life here and there to try to stabilize, but I don't know if there's a way to actually claw back in after gaining all that life. And this onslaught of these two elementals, backed up by this Ring and this Walker, might just tick away at Archie's life total. Angry baby.
I feel bad for Archie. I feel like he's done a lot of just sort of sitting on camera.
Yeah.
He like you said, he did win round 1, but like from an outsider's perspective,
Right.
it looked like he was losing a lot because he was kind of just sitting there.
Right, but like, discard that root wallet, and we're scooping it up. We're going to game number 2. Brian there, like we had said at the beginning, just needed to make it out of those first couple of turns to really take
Yeah.
control of that game. Archie tried applying that pressure, but a ring slammed on turn number 4, only left the battlefield when Brian wanted to. Gave him that protection, drew him those cards, and he took that game away.
Yeah, a lot of people complaining about the ring. It doesn't kill you immediately. It kills you eventually.
Yep. As a disgruntled elk said in chat, we might have actually made it all the way to turn 20.
There were a lot of lands in play for sure. Let's take a look at Brian's deck list real quick here. Oh, excuse me.
No, it's all right. Let's take a look here at Brian. Brian did submit their deck list here today. I know a couple people were curious last week. This is it in all of its glory. We saw when they were on camera earlier that they Narset Days Undoing one of their opponents. But let's check out that sideboard. We have that Kahira, our little bit of aggressive threat to beef up these Solitudes and these Subtleties, while also just being a great card to pitch to that Solitude out of this deck. Sideboard cards are 3 Blossoming Calms, 2 Dovin's Veto, Hollowed Moonlight, 3 Wear Tears, 2 Chalice of the Void, a Dress Down, and 2 Rest in Peace. So we're playing here against this green-red food Asmo discard graveyard sort of synergy going on.
Yeah, how does Madness interact with Rest in Peace?
Oh my goodness, not
it doesn't.
Well,
yeah, not in favor of the Madness player.
I think it works because you need to discard the card. Madness doesn't care where the card goes when it's discarded. So I believe you discard it into exile, which is where Rest in Peace is trying to send it anyways.
Okay.
And we did see an escape threat in our opponent's graveyard, so we might be looking at something like a Rest in Peace. We might be looking at Dress Down just to remove a lot of these abilities from these pesky creatures out of our opponent. We might be looking at these Blossoming Calms if we're worried about some sort of interaction, but I don't believe there's much going upstairs. None of those Lightning Bolts, none of those Thoughtseize, none of that style effects. We might...
Hallowed Moon Knight still checks if it was cast, right? So that's not like a weird thing.
Yeah, Hallowed Moonlight asks if the card was cast. If it wasn't, it goes into exile.
Yeah, it's not. It doesn't care about where it was cast from. It just if it
just
cares
cast, if it
so
was
that's
cast.
not relevant. Maybe some chalices. There's a lot of small like.
There's a lot of
here.
ones,
yeah,
right?
We
have the cookbooks themselves. We have both of the 1 mana red aggressive threats, but also I don't think Brian brought sideboard cards ready for this matchup, but also I don't know if they need them.
Yeah, that's fair.
Bringing some chalices on 1, some Dress Downs to turn off Asmo's ability, and some Rest in Pieces to really mess up our opponent's graveyard synergies might be all that we need, plus our incredible main deck that is right now this just real beefed up control deck might be all that Brian needs.
Yeah, let's take a look at a hollowed, hollow one?
Hollow.
A hollow deck list. Oh, we got a deck list that looks more similar to Archie's here.
This might be real close to what we have here in the... we're definitely looking at these Asmos, the Root Walls, the Adepts. Oh, even at the Neonates, right? So that even ups the count of cards that interact favorably against the Chalice of the Voids. Then we see the Hollow Ones, the Oxes, the Street Wraiths, the Inquiry, the Goblin Lore. A lot of this is definitely in line with what our player is playing here today. Even on the sideboard, we see things like Ancient Grudge that we have seen them bring in their matchups.
Not going to work against the ring, unfortunately.
I was about to say, very importantly, that the 1 ring is indestructible. So these destroy effects are not going to be able to tag it.
Oh, and I think players have shuffled up here and are starting.
And a cookbook is already in play. And a root wall is in play off the cookbook. And the food is made. And Archie is here to beat down.
Yeah, he's on the play, and he's got to get stuff rolling immediately to get ahead of Brian here.
And we even have that Wonder in hand as a perfect card to discard to this cookbook once again if Archie can search up a blue source. Oh, we have Roiling Vortex. This is one of the new tech that's being even main decked in Modern Burn right now. At the beginning of your turn, you take 1 damage. There's an activated ability that says target player can't gain life this turn. And the really important mode is if you play a spell for free, you take 5 damage. So that's going to interact with these subtleties, these solitudes, and these force negations out of Brian's deck.
Oh, yeah, I've seen this card a lot in Pioneer, actually. Our resident Burn player loves to play it against my Angels deck.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's even being main decked in Modern Burn right now. Just
Yeah.
not believing in Eidolons anymore, but playing these to counteract all the free spells while also over time doing 1 damage at a time. It becomes a bolt over 3 turns while also stopping your opponent's life gain and disincentivizing those free spells out of a Cascade deck or even out of these elementals. So Brian's strategy of sit behind the ring and use these free spells is a lot worse against a Roiling Vortex.
Absolutely. A counterspell came down on the field there in response to that Flame Blade Adept, and now we see a Narset on the field.
Brian playing my favorite version of foils, which are the pre-release date stamped foils. I love these foils, and if I had one wish in all of Magic,
Yeah.
is that they would go back to the exact date printings instead of the like yearly pre-release stamps.
Me too. I like those old ones as well.
Archie with an Arid Mesa. Remember, you're going to see life total slowly ticking down as you saw Brian helped out there. This Roiling Vortex affects both players, all going to be taking 1 damage on their upkeep. It's going to slowly tick away at both of these players. We see Archie searching up the Steam vents. Like we said earlier, they have that Wonder in hand. So we're looking to use this cookbook, pitch that Wonder in the bin, and give this little lizard some wings.
I don't know if that's like super relevant against Brian's board state.
Solitudes, Kahiras, all of them are on the ground.
I guess so, yeah.
The subtlety has flying and can block, but this is important to just take another avenue of stemming the bleeding away from Brian.
Sure.
You just don't have ground blockers anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we don't know that. Archie hasn't discarded the Wonder yet, but instead we've slammed a Magus of the Moon. Brian's deck, however, is running like 7 basics. Has like 5 basic islands, 2 planes. They're going to be able to scramble back into this game far more likely than the greedy 4 and 5 color mana base that we saw to players earlier.
There it is. He has both a plains and island on the board now.
Currently can't cast Counterspell proper, but can cast Reprieve. We can even cast a Leyline Binding right now because our Mountain plus our 2 basics. So unlike against a 4 color opponent, they're not fully shut off, but Archie is just playing this 2/2 that makes things awkward for Brian, which against a control opponent, you need to off-kilter them at least a little, can help you try to catch into those games. And we see Brian untapping. We're looking to slam something.
He's not slamming. He's being very, very hesitant.
It's Supreme Verdict.
There it is.
Found off the Narset, but currently not castable. Yeah, Archie thought it was being cast. There are not 2 white sources right now. Yeah, remember the Supreme Verdict costs 1 white, blue. And because of this Magus the Moon effect, we're cut off from that verdict. So Brian was hesitant to choose it because they can't cast it right now. But as Archie
put the fear in his heart a little bit there.
But breathe a sigh of relief that it is not being cast right now. Instead, these threats are staying in play. And Brian at 13 against what could be 5 damage a turn. And it looks, I hear Brian mouthing the words Kai. We might have a quick judge call. I know Brian's got a handful of free spells and might just be checking in on how badly this is going to go for tries to cast one. Remember, I always say, please feel motivated and encouraged to ask judges for help and questions during your events. Magic is a very, very complicated game of over 30 years of cards and interactions and how things go together with new cards popping up in your formats every day. And if you have a question, please ask it.
Judges are there to help you.
And it sees that we took this prismatic ending for 3, got that Magus of the Moon off the board, but we still got our little lizard.
Yeah, come on, bud. Get him. I'm sorry, I shouldn't root. Well, I
No.
can pick favorites here. I'm
You're just
excited though.
echoing what Disgruntled Elk said in chat of I've never rooted for a little lizard guy more in my life. And thank you so much. Shout out to the little lizard.
Yeah, I love me a little guy in Magic. I'll take a little lizard guy right now.
See, they're pumped up. They're coming in for 3 damage a turn. I was asking for lightning bolts before. This little guy's our little bolt.
Mm-hmm.
Every turn, just spending 1 mana, coming in for 3. 1 mana, coming in for 3.
And with this Roiling Vortex, it's kind of like coming in for 4 because you're taking 1 in
Yeah.
your upkeep and three during combat.
We're very much so taking away at Brian's life total this game.
Yeah, we're on a 3-turn clock here.
Not much left over in our hand, though. We still have that Wonder and 1 unknown that I couldn't quite make out in Archie's hand. But we're inching very close. And Brian, with a hand that can't play those free spells that they want, is stuck with a hand of expensive cards, right? When Solitude's not free, it's 5 mana. When Force Negation's not free, it's 3 mana. The ring is still 4. The deck becomes really expensive when this Vortex is in play. Because you're either paying 5 mana for your Solitude or 5 life for your Solitude. And when you're at 9, you can only do that once. I mean, I guess you could do it twice, but I wouldn't recommend the second time.
Right, yeah, because it's not a cost. Yeah.
Yeah, you just die.
You could die. I'm trying to see what's in Brian's hand here.
I see that you're leaning to the left like it's going to change your view.
It's like when you lean and like when you're playing Mario Kart.
I lean in Mario Kart all the time.
Yeah.
I always like tilt the controller and everything.
I hold the A button even harder.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're seeing Archie's hand here. We believe it to be this cookbook, a wonder.
I see a Force Negation in Brian's hand. There's an Odawara down.
Oh, I wonder, are we removing the Roiling Vortex from the board so that Brian can unlock their free spells? We are.
Nice.
Importantly, being done on the end step so that Archie doesn't have a window to recast this before Brian takes their turn. And now the Force of Negation in our hand can answer the Vortex. So Brian is at 5, facing down what is a 3-power attacker, but trying the best that we can to remove these powerful threats off the board so that we can try to get back into this game. We got a good look at Archie's hand there. It is the Vortex, the Hollowed One, and the Wonder.
Very good. I'm a little tense here. I feel like this game could still go either way.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've watched Archie wait in a lot of these games against highly interactive decks, but we're on the edge of our seat because he's put all of his opponents dead. Like,
yeah.
just pushing so close with this aggressive deck. And this is why in these formats where so many people are playing these dirtily ring, like, value engine decks, Burn's doing really well right now. Scam's doing really well right now. Pressure your opponent early and often, and you can really push through for a lot of wins. And we see Archie here at 2-1, most likely doing that all day to people. Everyone out there playing these big Trons and these big ring decks, and they're just pushing in for big damage before they can do anything. And Brian down to 4 now, staring down this 3-power attacker. We're going to pick up Kahira and play Kahira, the little blocker that could. But we're going to discard our Wonder and give our little lizard flying. And we searched up that Steam vent turns ago to prepare for this moment for the Wonder we've had since turn 1 in our opening hand. The Vortex is back, forcing Brian to use this force. And if they don't also have a Solitude and a white card, then discarding this Wonder is going to allow this little guy to start poking in. And although Kahira usually buffs up a lifelinking Solitude, Kahira itself does not have the lifelink.
I think it's just got Vigilance?
Yeah, it just has Vigilance and grants +1 in Vigilance.
Oh,
so,
right, it also gives Vigilance. Yeah.
So Archie is very close here if they want to discard this Wonder. And they do.
Here it goes into the grave.
Points right at their Steam vent, points at their little guy. And we have a Hollowed One in hand. So we're going to attack, beef it up, put our opponent down to 1. You can see Archie thinking here because if we had activated our other cookbook, if we had a card outside of the Hollowed One, we could have discarded the last card, played the Hollowed One for 1 mana, but was not an option they wanted, nor maybe they didn't have the extra card in hand, but I think they should have 1, but wanted that card more than they wanted that effect. And at 1 life, the Supreme Verdict's going to take the lizard away. Yes! Another lizard! Yep, remember, they did this to you earlier. Because of Madness, we can play this at instant speed off the Underworld Cookbook. Brian, is this little guy your little doom? Hollowed moon, but the card's being cast, right?
It is being cast. It maybe does it draw? It's a cycle.
The Hollow Moonlight still cycles, but we scoop it up to the little lizard,
Let's go!
and we're gonna go to game
Lizard!
3. Again, we are unbiased here in the commentary
Yes.
in the booth, but there's something about a little guy,
This little guy. Love it.
and Brian's
Everyone
deck
loves
is,
an underdog.
yeah, and Brian's deck is unbelievably powerful, and
Mhm.
Brian has done really, really well over this event and last Wednesday. But it's important to see how hard aggressive decks can push through
Mhm.
into this meta. I was saying it before. Burn, Scam, and I guess maybe even Hollow One can really push through against these decks just trying to generate value. And you can see Brian really in the tank here for their sideboarding as we're just
Mhm.
checking these players out, that they're not quite sure. You know, we were saying before, maybe they don't have the best sideboard cards for this matchup,
Yeah, you're not really expecting this deck to
right?
um
We
happen
might be
upon.
looking. I remember in Brian's sideboard, he had wear tears.
Mhm.
Brian might be going back in for those wear tears because of how important that Roiling Vortex was in that matchup. That we know
Absolutely.
that if we get wear tear, it could answer the Vortex and a cookbook. So now we
Mhm.
might have a good 2-for-1 that's worth bringing in out of our sideboard.
And of course, in a pinch, it also deals with the hollow one as well.
Yeah, so maybe we didn't bring in before because we didn't quite feel we had enough targets. But now checking out what Archie's doing post board, this is a really important learning opportunity that the way you board in game 2 doesn't have to be the way you sideboard in game 3. If you see something that is a problem for you that you didn't quite have an answer for, change it up. Understand that your plan in game 3 can be different than your plan in game 2.
Absolutely. And with Brian on the play here, there could be nuances there as
Yeah.
well.
Brian's deck definitely wants to be on the play, right? Just get ahead as early as possible. But Archie's deck, as we said before, isn't going to give them a lot of time. So the 7 that Brian keeps here, or the 6 or the 5, whatever it may be, is going to be very important because Archie is going to apply as much pressure as they can.
All right, as players are shuffling up here,
Yeah.
we're going to let them play it out. We're not going to an ad. We're going to keep you in the action here.
Yeah, we get to see, again, this is the last game, the last round that we're going to bring you here. But it is an oh-so important one. One game
Mhm.
apiece. Game number 3, looking at our opening 7s. And Brian's kicking it off, keeping these 7s, Windswept Heath, and back to Archie. And I see a lizard.
I see a lizard. Here he goes.
All right, this may be a specific thing to the Midwest, but
Mm.
there is a commercial
Uh-huh.
for a reptile conference. Some people in the Midwest may know this, with the weirdest little auto-tuned kid's voice, and they go, "They got lizards?" And I think about it all the time while Archie here is resolving a burning inquiry against the opening hand that Brian kept.
I'm sorry. I've lived in Chicago like my whole life. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Please, whether it's today in chat or reach out to me on Twitter at SwampSoulRingo, I need just one person out there to know what I'm talking about.
Just an ounce of validation somewhere.
Wow, Brian's discards off these burning inquiry was Solitude Island.
Oh my goodness.
While Archie's discard was Mountain Cookbook Asmo. But Brian is down 2 Solitudes, and we probably kept a hand off 1 or even 2 of those Solitudes in their power in this matchup. Burning Inquiry can be so rude. But again, they got lizards? I swear.
Dakota's just gonna go find it for you now.
I've tried looking up this commercial so many times to make it my ringtone. It's for the Midwest Reptile Convention.
What do you mean? What?
At one point they go, reptiles! I swear, it's a real commercial.
We just need Shazam for the little brainworms in our head.
Oh my goodness, if they had Shazam for brainworms, it'd be so helpful. As we see Brian with a Hall of the Storm Giants and throwing it back to Archie. I do believe in my heart of hearts that these Solitudes were a big part of Brian's plan, and Archie took them away from them. I even see a rest in peace in Brian's hand.
I caught a peek at that one too. We were discussing whether or not Brian should have brought those in or not.
Root Walla. Yep. Archie, in the past games has used the Madness ability on this Blazing Root Walla to get them for free. They still just cost a red. We can play them out. These can be our little goblin guides that could. Yeah, I imagine Brian not playing this Rest in Peace out means we must be holding up counter magic. But is the little lizard worth a counterspell? Is the second little lizard worth a counterspell?
Each one gets scarier.
Right, and that's one of the... I would say good parts of these little aggressive threats that don't seem that important is Brian did now just spend that counterspell on this Blazing Root Walla.
Oh, excuse me. I searched up Basking Root Walla. There's another
Yep.
Root Walla. I
Basking
didn't
is
know
the
that.
original with this ability, and then in MH2, they made this red color shifted version that's playing out very nicely here in this green-red madness discard aggressive deck.
Mm.
And again, Brian spent a whole counterspell on one of these, and now this first one that he let resolve might be the one that goes the distance, followed up by the Magus of the Moon, looking very similar to our plan in Game 2.
And a fetch and response here?
Yeah, we're either fixing our mana and then letting it resolve, or fetching this up and then interacting with it. But this looks like a fetch for a basic and a resolution. Sounded like Brian there said, I don't have anything.
Mm-hmm. It's weird how,
And-
like, you learn to, like, read lips.
Yeah. Brian here searched up that island and it plays a plains out of hand, and you wonder how important this Magus is going to be for the rest of this game. Like, interestingly, under Archie's own Magus, this Steam Vents is no longer an island, so if we draw Wonder at any point, it's no longer online because it no longer sees an island in play for us.
That's a really, really good point.
This Leyline Binding, hard cast for the 3-mana mode, taking the Magus, unlocking Brian's mana while also taking down Archie's aggressive threat. Second main, another Burning Inquiry, which could just really, really ruin a hand. Again, I
Alrighty.
played against this deck trying to assemble Tron, and
Mhm.
it does not matter what your plan is, this card will ruin your plan.
All right, let's see what these players hit here.
This is my favorite method of just, I'm going to pick them. Pick these 3, get those out of here. Archie, they do have Vengevines on their deck. We hadn't seen them yet, but Vengevine, Arid Mesa, and Goblin Lore being discarded. Dress Down and Supreme Verdict from Brian being taken away.
Those are some good hits.
Archie, these have been so powerful. Do you see the little lizard just hanging out in the middle? I don't know what he's up to.
He's a little askew.
He's kind of
It's all good.
visiting Kahira. There it
There
is.
you
All right.
go.
And then because we've discarded these cards, we have the Asmar Renegade Goldagar that has entered the battlefield, and now we have our Underworld Cookbook sneaking its way in as well. Remember, no Magus the Moon. Archie's mana is now fully unlocked for them as well.
Mhm.
With another Vengevine in hand.
Let's get that up on the screen real quick. It's been a second since I've read that card.
Vengevine, I died to Vengevine to NRG 5K champion Will Kowalczyk out of his Oops All Spells Team Modern deck. I was
Oh,
not ready
interesting.
in round 3 to play against Oops All Spells Vengevine beatdowns, but it happened. And now we have Brian with the rest in peace.
All right. Oh, okay.
This card is very, very cool.
Yeah.
You can understand why entire decks were built around Vengevine in an era of its time, and still this deck to this point.
Mhm.
Magic players are drawn to just cool, right? When
Yeah.
something does something different, something interesting, Magic players are drawn to it, figure out how to break it, how to play it, how to make it work.
Mhm.
Vengevine's been one of those cards for a long time, and we still see it holding strong here in Archie's deck, and we've got another little lizard coming off that cookbook.
There's this concept that I read about a few months ago called, oh, what do they call it? Like like scuds, like signposts, like 2-color uncommon.
Oh, the signpost uncommons,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. The Magic Data Science Twitter. I was reading a bunch about that. They were talking about it. Sorry. The reason I brought that up is because of signposts. Like, oh, you see this mechanic that very clearly has a build around.
Oh,
and
yes.
so players take that.
So when you
as
see a card like
incentive.
Vengevine that
Yeah.
clearly says, do this, try this,
Mhm.
it's the same thing with commander design nowadays.
Sure.
It's more appealing to players to be told like where to begin the journey, but not the destination, as opposed to telling them the entire thing.
Absolutely.
Magic players love to feel smart. There's a reason we cast a lot of Steam Vents and a lot of cantrip spells out here. Is you love that feeling of being smart, winning, playing well, accomplishment. All of it goes into why people love Magic. On top of the cool and the fantasy and the little lizards and all the battles going on, we love to feel smart. So when Magic sets something up for you to knock it out of the park is one of the best deck
Mhm.
building feelings.
All right. Archie will pump up that root wall so that it trades with the Kahira.
And as we see,
Ooh, and a little haywire might comes down as well.
which could answer this rest in peace if we're worried, or this leyline binding if we want our aggressive threat back. But Brian's down to 5. We are applying our aggression, and they have very little going on. Has to be off the back of these burning inquiries. Took
Yeah.
4 very relevant spells away from Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Shocking at such a low life total, down to 3 against 3 power in play. This smells like a hard cast Solitude. I can smell it.
What's it smell like? What's a Solitude smell like?
Cotton candy.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Oh, and the Hall of Storm Giants on blocking mode. That is not. I did not smell that, and I should have. It was very clear on board. Check your opponent's mana bases for these creature lands.
Yeah, I think I might have caught Archie by surprise as well.
I've been caught here so many times, but that Haywire might still poked in for another point of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Brian down to 2. We heard Brian's chuckle. We are in what could be these final moments, or there's going to be so much more game to play.
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
very, very dependent on these few cards that Brian has left. And Brian needs to be very careful. Oh, this one ring is going to give the protection, but then if we want, the little bug can eat it up.
It can indeed. It does still give protection.
Yes. Here's a very important interaction. If you're out there trying to play against the ring, it's very important because of how Archie's doing this right now. So if Archie waited for Brian to activate the ring and then hit it with the Haywire Mite, effects like this use last known information. If your opponent went to activate the ring, but then you blow it up, when the ring's ability resolves, it'll see that it had 0 counters on it. You'll draw 0 cards. But in this situation, Archie targeted it, so then Brian activated, put 1 counter, and then got to draw 1 card. If we adjusted that timing and kind of played the cat and mouse of when Brian was going to activate, we could have taken the card and the ring away from him. It's very important, especially when you're playing with cards like Leyline Binding or Haywire Mite, that there are moments where if you can wait and have the patience and the availability where you can take the card and the ring as opposed to just the ring. But this Den of the Bugbear, did Brian remember this was here? Goblin. Den.
He still got protection from everything.
Wow.
Oh, and there's the head in the hand.
We all just had this
Archie forgot
experience.
about it.
We got so excited. Production here at the booth saw the den, and we were excited to get in. But at the end of it, we still have this goblin. We are still creating threats that Brian has to deal with. At 2 life, they don't have much time. Oh, Archie here saying that Brian didn't reveal the tattoo, so they never got protection.
Oh, there you go.
It's a part of the triggers. You have to reveal the tattoo.
And there was, I think we talked about this last week, technically the ring is like a quote-unquote hidden trigger,
Yeah,
right?
I've been calling them ghost triggers. I don't know a good word for it, right? Where
you don't have to announce it. It's like prowess. We have sort of talked about like you should just announce it.
Yes,
it's not
very
really
important.
fun to have these sort of gotcha moments, and this is a game that we're playing together. It's all about good communication. So.
I think this gotcha moment might still be good for Archie because I don't know if they would have attacked and made this goblin if they knew about the protection. But this goblin might just still be so important. It's just having creatures in play that can attack, that even though this may have been a negative kind of gotcha moment because of the way this works, it might still work out in Archie's favor. And we have this Narset that Brian is going digging for something that's going to be relevant and helpful here.
There's a ring.
Another copy of the ring. Narset, another one of these cards.
Can't grab it though. It's a yes.
You can.
Oh, sorry. It's not.
Non-creature,
It's
non-land.
That's what it is. Yes. Oh, that's so important.
Narset, like a Shieldred. Very good with the ring and very good against opposing rings. Narset can find your rings and shut off your opponent's rings. We're finding a lot of these cards that are powerful that are gaining even more power in the new ring meta.
I'm so used to Narset grabbing an instant to sorcery that in my head I had it that's all she could grab. But yes, it is just non-creature,
she can also grab
non-land.
friendly planeswalkers. She can grab Teferis. You can
Oh,
grab extra
gosh.
Narsets, the old classic dig through time for dig through time. Here we see the one ring, and Brian did reveal the tattoo, so the protection is now in.
There you go.
Yeah, the question here is, will Archie fire up and attack? Importantly to remember, you have protection, not your walkers, not your creatures. So this is a good chance for Archie to fire up the den again, get a goblin token, and just hard cast this Vengevine. Because now we can use our 2 creatures to pressure the Narset. And this is one of those moments. So we see Archie here passing without attacking. It's the confusing part of the ring, right? You gain protection, but not your creatures. If you're not quite used to this interaction, not quite used to the format, the ring is still very new. And we see them fetching down to 1 for Brian, Archie chanting. But it's very hard, right, in this format to truly get every interaction correct.
Mm-hmm.
Protection seems like everything is safe
I mean, it literally says protection from everything.
from everything.
Yeah.
But you have it. So
Mm-hmm.
this is one of those situations. I'll even let Archie know after that this Narset was doomed. And hopefully in the future we can all learn and grow together through this game of Magic.
We can all become better Magic players.
It's one of the big reasons about doing this NRG store stream is to give all these players a lot of practice, understanding this format for you guys at home so that when these big tournaments show up here at the NRG series, we can learn a lot here from these games instead of finding out in round 4 of a big tournament.
Sure, yeah. We all make mistakes. It's natural. It's
Yes.
human. It's part of Magic, and this is a safe space to do it in.
Like on camera, I've tried to draw cards in an Narset, and then you'll never do it again. It's much better to learn those lessons here at these stakes and at this local level than when a lot is on the line.
Oh yeah, the first time I ever played on camera at NRG was pre-COVID when we still had the camera in the alcove, and I was playing against a zombie player, and we were doing all sorts of stuff. I was like brand new to Modern, and like Dakota had to come out and be like, "Hey guys, just so you know, both of you messed up."
Oh no.
But both of us had made misplays, and you were just like, "Hey, just
It's
so
so
you know,
hard.
like you both made like illegal plays," and I was so embarrassed.
Magic is an intricate game. There's a lot happening and a lot going on at all stages of this game.
Dakota's getting a little defensive behind the camera over there. I meant no offense. It was a learning experience for me. I was embarrassed, but of course, you know, I wasn't made to feel bad. It happens to all of us.
And speaking of offense, we have this Vengevine going on the offensive, meeting a Leyline Binding. But remember, Brian is at 1 life, inching ever so closely to his final moments. I think empty-handed, but this ring is a dangerous ring to activate. We've had scenarios on camera last week where Brian drew every single card in his deck, and now I think he wishes he just had 1 or 2 more of those cards he used up last week for this scenario right now. I wouldn't recommend activating that ring, but I could be tempted. Because Brian here needs to go, we can go 1 card deep off this ring, and then 2 next turn if we really wanted to, in response to our own trigger. But none of our effects are at instant speed that can interact with this ring. So it's dangerous to draw even a single card. We just leave this untapped. We have these Hall of the Storm Giants hiding out in our mana base, but we know if we attack with our Hall, that Den's coming in to finish the game off.
Absolutely.
Just mana base staring down mana base. It looks like not a lot's going on, but both having large aggressive threats hiding out in their mana base. Brian,
And
you
there
risky
it is.
bisky.
There it is. He's been tempted. I mean, I think
it's
he's made the line that he
it's
has no
just-
other outs. But
It's just what the ring does.
it's just 1 card.
Oh, and we're going to dig even farther with this Narset to try to find an answer to our own ring. 3. We found a Teferi! We're going to be able to bounce our own ring and continue to survive at 1 life point.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But if we
5.
spend this mana to tap out, did we forget about the Den of the Bugbear? We're going to bounce the ring.
And you
but
can
then we
replay
replay
the
ring
ring and you have
regain
protection.
protection.
Oh, Archie, please. He's not going to know to swing at the Planeswalkers again.
This ring card is wild, folks. It truly has made good cards even better. Teferi, Narset,
These
Force
cards don't need
Negation,
to be made
Solitude.
better. Blue-white control's already good, okay? They
Oh.
don't need more cards.
Archie drew
Just
and
passes
passed it back.
Oh, gosh.
Remember, this is a learning opportunity for all of us. That
Mhm.
you gain protection, but not these Planeswalkers. Because the Den would have killed both these Planeswalkers. We could have sent the Goblin at the Teferi and then the Den at Narset. We could have cleared these off the table. It may come up here because Archie's going to get to untap and swing in with this Den again. But Brian might be mapping out his mana to prepare a big blocker for that Den. But then the Goblin sneaks through for the final point of damage. So Brian not only needs to block, but needs to answer the Goblin token as well. And very, very importantly, I've made this mistake before. Leyline Binding says non-land, so you can't get a creature land with it. Cards like Brazen Bar, they say non-land, you can't get creature lands with it. You gotta be very careful about the moments where you strike. In the removal spells that you're using, make sure that they're actually going to be able to do it.
And a Hardcast Wonder!
This thing has flying. We have a big flying threat in play. Brian, can you find something to help you against this? Your creature land cannot block this. Oh, we're getting aggressive with this one.
He's got Archie on a 2-turn clock as well. Archie does have a food, but
yeah, but Archie's got Brian on a 1-turn clock. So Brian, what do you have to answer this wonder? Archie, don't block.
Archie, no.
But then your den can get through. So you do block because now your den has flying.
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Archie, this is so cool.
Does Brian have a way to instant cast this
I imagine we have a
the Supreme
Solitude.
Verdict? He got the Supreme Verdict off the Narset.
Wow, we've had this verdict for a long time. We plus this to Fairy. We can instant speed this verdict. Wow, he's Zowie. I remember the verdict from way back when. Archie, do you remember the verdict from way back when? Did you write it down? No matter what an unbelievable game here out of both of our players.
Fantastic last match to end on for sure.
This is the Burning Inquiry. We're going to try to rip the verdict.
Yes! Oh my god. Wait, no, but he's got a Narset. Okay. Okay, never mind. All right.
You would have drawn 0 and discarded 3. Wow, that was so risky. Brian, I don't know if you should have countered that.
Oh my god.
This game is wild.
He just really likes he needs that Supreme Verdict in hand.
We're making another food. Yeah, it would have been really bad for Archie, but it would have been way worse for Brian. And we're going to hard cast this hollow one because we have discarded a card this turn. Discounted by 2, down to 3 for the casting cost on hollowed one. Brian at 1 life. Again, I wish this deck had some lightning bolts in it.
No, the Roily Vortex even, like...
Yeah, we could draw a Vortex, absolutely. And here's the Hall coming in again, most likely being blocked by this hollowed one. Because now we even have the Teferi down tick if we don't block with the hollow one. We can even Teferi down tick and reset this ring if we'd want. Just spending every 3rd turn resetting the ring.
And
Archie takes it. Archie is out for blood. Because now we're going to have 2 threats, 3 threats. And then the hollow one, the den, and the goblin it creates. All lethal threats. And the question again will be, do we remember this instant speed verdict? We're going to eat it here. And then we can crack our food to gain enough life to survive. We can still play this food to survive through the Hall attack. And then hopefully be able to attack back with this Root Walla. Unfortunately, the Wonder is an exile from the Rest in Peace, so we don't have the flying from the Wonder's effect.
Oh. I'm on the edge of my seat, man.
This is just good, clean magic.
This is great.
I'm
having so much fun here.
This is the perfect game right before bedtime.
We'll be back next week. Don't forget, make sure to hit that follow button and get notified when we go live next week with more Modern for y'all.
Yeah, we're inching piece by piece to 1,000 followers. I hope you'll be one of them. We're at 600 right now. Brian has revealed the tattoo. Lord of the Ring, the One Ring, trigger resolved. Archie, getting with the little guy. We have the ring effect. Why is this solitude? And Archie's at 7. Yeah, this solitude is an aggressive one. This solitude plus the Hall of the Storm Giants should be enough to rumble through even against this blocking Den of the Bugbear. Yeah, Bryant hard casting, getting this Root Wall out of here. Pumping the Root Wall so they gain more life. Gaining 3 up to 10. Looks like we use the Solitude to block.
Interesting. Okay. Because he didn't want Archie to gain the life, perhaps. So
oh, wow.
Is it up to 1 target?
Yeah,
like
they chose no target on the Solitude and blocks so that Archie didn't gain life, and instead Brian gains the 3 from combat. Beautiful decision there by Brian to get the most they can out of that Solitude.
All right, now that he's got some life to work with, we'll take a damage from the ring there.
You just scrape through, escape through, get a couple life points back, and spend it right away on cards off the One Ring.
They're the last match in the building. Everyone else has gone home.
It's like when you're playing in the top 8 of an NRG event, and they're closing shop behind you and carrying things away.
I'm packing up the banners.
Right? And they're just playing the most intense game of Magic they've played in a long time.
I've fully forgotten, like, Magic is going on, and I'll just start, like, talking or like,
Yeah, people are playing for
yelling.
thousands of dollars, and you're just snacking on pizza and yelling
Mhm.
across the room.
Classic Sunday night pizza. Yep, yep. Oh, here
Here
comes
we have
another
another
Solitude.
Solitude. Leaf targeting our own Hall, just gaining a pile of life. Brian, these plays are cool.
10 out of 10.
Archie, suddenly the tables have turned. Archie's at 3, and Brian's all the way back up to 10 with a
Gosh.
lethal threat in play on his side. Now we just can't get in with his den. It's nowhere near enough damage. Brian truly using every part of each of their cards to scrape back into this game, and now at a very healthy 10 life.
Yeah, and remember, he was down to
One.
one life.
Unbelievable.
Has just managed to claw back.
Untapping, taking the damage off our ring, drawing up. We're going to activate this, most likely the big hall and the Solitude, and start crashing in, working our way through Archie's den and this Flame-Blade Adept just to get them off the table, possibly to get the beatdowns on the final turn next turn. And if we have removal spells, this gets even harder.
With this one ring activations, now he's got even more cards to work with.
Yeah, he's at 9. We're digging even deeper now. Yep, has to block. Discard. We've discarded a card to get a power on this Flame-Blade Adept so that it can now trade with this Solitude. And they do trade. Brian gaining 3 more points of life, up to 12 now.
Archie gets a second food there, which does represent 3 more life that he can potentially work with.
A new ring. Just unbelievable.
Oh, man.
Keeping our new ring, drawing even more cards.
What a game, folks. Archie with a chip and a chair at this point is going to sack both of these foods.
Get those foods out of here. Munch on them. Gain that
A
life.
little late night 4th round snack for him there.
Brian is pausing Archie at the beginning of their turn with a Daze Undoing
my
instant speed with Narset in
goodness.
play. I feel like Brian's very happy now that he added this Daze Undoing to his deck today. Has come up in both of their camera matches today. Yeah, interesting choice, Archie, right? Get the value you can now off the card before it's shuffled and stripped away from you. And Archie, because it's at instant speed, Archie's already drawn their 1 card per turn. Their draw step was the 1 that they get. So Brian now is going to draw up to 7. Interestingly enough, because it's at instant speed, it doesn't auto end the turn, but I don't know how much Archie can do with their turn anyways. Yes, the look of someone who watches their opponent draw 7 when you have no threats in play.
It would crush a lesser man,
Yeah.
I think.
Archie is going to crack this food and go up to 12 life. The Hall's going to rumble in. And then turn after that, the Hall's going to rumble in once more. Drop that card on the floor, no problem. Pick it back up.
It's all good.
Here in our final moments of this very important game for them. Brian, blue, white, ring control. How about a little Manamo to finish the spice
Hey,
off?
why not?
Man, I want to
While
play
we're
this deck
here.
so badly.
It's great to see a good pilot of a deck. It just makes you want to play it.
Absolutely. Between this and seeing the 4-color blue-white control version from earlier,
Lots of quotation marks.
these cards are just incredible, and this big Hall rumbling in for big damage. Archie down to 2. We're going to pop this food up to 5, and we have 1 card left to draw. Will it be good enough?
All right.
We can't even draw Beseiju as Brian has a second Hall hiding out in that mana base. Just a little.
That takes care of the Hall,
And
but
the
it
force
won't
takes
be
care
enough.
of them. And that's the game. Unbelievable games here. Going 2 games to 1 in favor of the blue-white ring control deck in the hands of Brian Tepper.
Incredible. 7 out of 8 matches won for Brian, and including this week and last. Fantastic work done there. Taking it home in 3. And that will be the last of our matches for the night, folks. Thank you so much for watching. What an incredible ending to our night. Make sure to hit that follow button. We'll be back with more fantastic coverage for you next week. Before we head out, we're going to run through a quick couple of ads. First, we're going to look at our weekly schedule here. Tonight was, of course, Modern. We also have Pioneer, Commander, and Legacy spread throughout the week, as well as our alt games. We have Digimon, One Piece, and Pokemon tomorrow. We will be live with our Pokemon coverage on Thursdays, so stay tuned for that. In addition, we also sell lots of Magic cards. If you want to pick up one of the decks you saw tonight, head on over to nerdragegaming.com and load up that cart with some fantastic Magic singles. We're listing more cards every day, so if you see a card that we're missing, add to your wish list and get notified immediately for that. We have a NRG Series event upcoming in Detroit. The second weekend of August, we will have a 10K Modern Showdown and a 5K Pioneer Trial. The winner of the showdown, of course, qualifies for our championship event as well as the regional championship in, I believe, Atlanta? Or what's the next one after Atlanta?
Yeah, Atlanta sounds right.
Still qualifies for Atlanta. You get a fantastic Inkling Customs token. Or if the main events aren't your speed, we have tons of fantastic side events. You can win oversized cards, uncut sheets, stuff off our prize wall, get stuff signed by Phil Stone. Fantastic stuff. Next event after Detroit is, of course, Indianapolis, which is our double 10K weekend. We just updated our team trial to be triple modern.
Triple Modern.
So come with your fantastic burn deck and 2 other burn decks and take it down. I want to see some triple burn buddies.
Burn Buddies is good. Someone
Yeah.
lock in Burn Buddies.
Or try a Pioneer on Saturday. Either way, we'd love to see you there. My name is Aviva Gilman alongside Dominic Stryker. Dom, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank y'all for joining us. We'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Good night.